Okay. It says we're live. I'm gonna give it a couple moments. Alright, we should be actually live now. Welcome everyone. This is On Just Restart. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Please let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if it sounds okay. Let me know if it sounds good. And also let me know if you can hear my friend Brandon. You also know he's usually the co-host on the channel. How you doing, buddy?
Yes, I'm doing. You know, life. You can't let life get you down. You know, I may not be doing the best, but you know, I'm here for the podcast anyways, and we're gonna have a good time.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. Even though life is not the best for you, I appreciate that. You're a good friend. I may not be because I.
What? No.
But I will try to be.
Wash.
I will try to be. Yeah, we're going live tonight. We're going to be talking about Nintendo as we usually do. We're going to be talking about a rumored September Nintendo Direct. Yes, it's actually rumored, and it's coming from a pretty good source. So we'll be talking about that today. We're also going to be talking about Zelda's part in this potential Direct, or lack thereof. And whatever else ensues, well, that's what will ensue. I'm sure we'll delve into some Zelda theory. We may talk a little bit about Xenoblade. We may talk about the upcoming Splatoon or Pokemon. Those are also things we may touch on. It kind of just depends on what you guys bring up in the chat, because that's what we do. We talk about what we have planned for, and we go back and forth with you guys in the chat. So, yes, please let me know, guys, how everything is looking and sounding. I'd appreciate that. If you guys could leave a like, that'd be super helpful as well. And if you're new here, subscribe, because, yeah, get me to 13,000 subscribers, because...
Yeah, you just hit 12,000.
Correct. We hit 12,000. You know...
Congratulations, man.
Things have slowed down since last year. Not gonna, like, pretend like things have been going incredibly well, like we're pacing to make incredible numbers. But at the same time, I also am happy that there is a consistent audience here. I enjoy these podcasts. I enjoy going into the chat and talking with you guys and seeing you guys in the comments of my videos. Even though I may not be like growing at a dramatic rate, the fact that I have an audience, that fills me with joy, right? Like that, it makes me feel significant. And when I say significant, I don't mean like, oh man, I'm famous. I just mean like, I feel that what I do is something that's of worth, it's of value, because I have you guys who watch it and talk about it. You
feel accomplished, you feel fulfilled.
Absolutely.
It's good.
Yeah. So I'm very happy about that, and thank you guys for being a part of this. You know, even though things have been slow, hitting this milestone, it means something, right? I guess because we have been kind of waiting to hit that next milestone. It's been a while since we've hit a milestone, and hitting it now, you know, it kind of... I'm never going to give up. I'm always going to try to get bigger and better. I always have hopes and dreams to, you know, accomplish even greater things, but I'm at least like happy with what we've been able to accomplish, and it's been a fun time. So hopefully we can continue having a fun time. But yeah, thank you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. But Brandon, I'm gonna check in with the chat real quick here. But first, how about you talk about a little bit about yourself or what you've been playing while I tweet out that we're live.
You know what I've been playing? I've been playing The Grind. This great game called The Grind. It's called The Work Grind. You may never have played this. Actually, I know for a fact that you played this even harder than I do. But yeah, I haven't been playing shit. Absolutely nothing.
Okay. See, I thought The Grind wasn't actually a game.
No.
And I was like,
I'm talking actual life grind.
I'm somewhat familiar.
40-hour week grinds. I'm sure you work way more than that, but for me that's a lot. You know, it is what it is. But you know, not video game related, just a little extra tidbit. If anybody has Prime Video, The Boys, amazing show. It is so good. Hard to watch sometimes because either it's so violent or the things that are happening on screen you just don't want to ever happen to anybody ever. But it's good. It's great. It's like Invincible's also on Prime Video, right? Two great superhero, very very effed up superhero shows on Prime Video. They kind of got that market down.
Yeah, The Boys is pretty awesome. I'll say that. I
But I do
seen
plan
the
on
latest season,
getting
though.
back into Xenoblade for sure. 'Cause I haven't played that in like 2 weeks, and it's eating me up every time because like I don't have my Switch plugged in right now because it's not my Switch, so I have to borrow my sister's Switch, but she's gone now, so I have free reign, so I should be taking the opportunity to play Xenoblade. But you know how life is.
I do. I will tell you, I have kept Xenoblade a part of my life, and it's been pretty great.
Xenoblade's one of those things where you have to think, and I want to get invested in the story. I don't want to come home and be like barely functioning and trying to like. I want to be playing in a time where I can involve myself and throw myself into the world. You know, not be tired as hell.
I hear you there. I find myself falling asleep to Xenoblade, right? Every night before
That music
bed.
will do it to you. So relaxing.
It puts me to bed. And I mean that in a good way because of the music. It is so relaxing. It's a nice escape. On the flip side, if I'm invested in the story, trying to progress as much as I can to get more story, that's a slippery slope. Okay.
Yeah, because like you should only have like an hour or two to play, right?
Yeah.
So like, am I gonna watch an episode of my show, or am I gonna like hope I don't get stuck halfway through the story beat and have to stop?
Yeah.
Shows are so much easier to pace yourself because you know exactly how long they are.
Yeah. I'll tell you that I was really like just going straight through the story, like going hard. I really want to get to the Mechonis sword, and I got there. I got to the Mechonis sword, and I'll tell you, once I got to the sword, I slowed down. A lot of cool stuff happened up to that point, and I've heard that Chapter 5 is crazy. I'm in Chapter 5, but I'm at the beginning of Chapter 5. So I kind of want to see what happens in Chapter 5, but
this is what makes me want to play this game
Yeah.
so much. I have barely scratched the surface of the story, and I know it gets so good. And right now I'm on like this lull of the story where they're like barely even animating the cutscenes. Like at this point, it's strange because like the cutscenes before, and I'm sure they're gonna get like better again. And this is just like a slow part of the story, but it was like non-stop amazing cutscenes, and then I just hit this moment where it's just like, and it's they still have voice acting, but it's just like text boxes and voice acting.
yeah.
But I know it gets really good. Like obviously 2 is kind of the same way, where it was like really slow at the beginning. But I feel like 2 and 1 had a few things that hooked me. But I know I'm like right before the big hooks of the game, so I really want to get further. But I know that once I get further, I'm not gonna want to stop.
Yeah. I'll say that I'm glad I got to the Mechonis sword because I had like that hunger to see what was there, and I went through a whole bunch of stuff that was really cool. But I kind of regretted going through the story so quickly because I was kind of skipping a lot of stuff. I did miss out on a lot of side quests, and I've actually
Are there time side quests in this game?
What?
Are there time side quests in this game, like in 1?
I don't think so. Not to my knowledge. I hope not. I'll say that
usually if there's time side quests, those are just the ones I never do. I'm just like, there's a time limit. Yep, not doing that.
Yeah. What I was gonna say though, right, is that I have since kind of stopped progressing the story. I am progressing the story, but very, very slowly. And I've really been focused more on going back to different areas and finding more places I can explore. And whenever I see a question mark, I go to it. And usually those question marks lead to more story side quests, because there's actually a lot of story side quests. You may meet a blade, you may just experience a side story of one of the main characters, and you'll go through that and you'll actually obtain something nice, like a higher, like being able to rank up your class even higher than 10. And I discovered that recently. So there's actually a lot of really cool things. I have this theory, and I haven't finished the game yet, so I don't know if it's confirmed within the game, the story of the game. But I have this theory that the beginning area, the first like province of Xenoblade 3, like when you start in Everblight Valley, that giant structure that's above you, I theorize that that is the remains of the head of Gormon. Gorma as in the giant
Huh.
deer from Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Right. I
'Cause
have to
s-
go back and look because I completely forget what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I haven't been back to the first area of the game.
I
in a
mean,
while.
you can look. You can just look there from the expanse, right? But if it is the remains of Gormont, it's definitely been like separated into different parts. Like it's not all in one piece. It's been broken up. There's definitely been some morphing, some decay, literally pieces that are just not together anymore. But I've seen some pieces that seem to match up pretty well. Like
You
there's
said Gormati, right?
Gormont, right? Gormati are the people.
Oh yeah, Gormati.
Yeah.
Either way.
But like for example, if I'm not mistaken, the like back spinal area of Gormont, the neck has like these giant like spiked plates, and there's like a mountain range that's there that matches that, and it kind of ends. There's no head, but if you look
Can you see those kind of distinct, like, because it's got like this spike. It's got like on its head, right? It's got these like rectangle pattern going down, right? Kind of like
there's
almost like sighting.
there's some similarity.
Like
I really do.
ridges for sure, like distinct patterns you should be able to see, right?
It's pretty similar. I think there's a good chance. Now I gotta explore the head, and I actually think what's interesting though, there's a spot that I think you actually can get to, and maybe I'm just overhyping myself, but I believe there's a chunk of Titan it's super decayed and dysmorphed. It's hard to say for sure, but it looks like it has like dysmorphed antlers, and it seems like there's an area within it, and I see like giant tree trunks that extend off of it into land that I know you can explore. So it looks like you might be able to get to the head. Again, I don't know, but I'm kind of excited about this because I'm just exploring, going further and further. I've discovered in multiple towns that if you don't take the time to actually go ahead and do side quests and explore the world, you will never see. Like there's entire areas with characters and towns and things going on and mechanics that you could skip entirely if you just do the story. I think the best way to play Xenoblade is to try and get every hero. Do every question mark. I'm not saying you have to do every little side quest, but do all the major ones because they actually have straight up nicely animated cutscenes and voice work done for them. It's not
Definitely
just like nonsense.
Right. It definitely seems like it's easier to get to these and trigger these side quests than, say, the Blade quest in 2, where they were actually, like, you had to get the Blade, which was hard in itself, but then you had to, like, trigger a bunch of different things, and you had to get the Blade to a certain affinity level, I think, and different field skills with them, and it was, like, a whole ordeal just to, like, set this stuff up. It seems like in 3, all the ones I've done, you just walk up to them and you just start the quest. Seems pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, you just go to these areas, there's question marks, you just go to them, there you go, and it unlocks something. Like, I found an entirely other new, like, openish area in one of the earlier sort of regions, just by exploring more, and then I discovered a whole other blade that I could have had, not a blade, but a hero, that I could have had earlier on in the story that I just didn't have. So there's some great stuff there. But let's get into the chat, and let's jump into the topics, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about Xenoblade later. So let's check in the chat here. Megaton Menace added me. How are you liking Xenoblade Chronicles 3? I'm liking it very, very much. Thank you for just bringing it up again. It's a pretty good game. I love it. I have about 73 hours in, and I'm in chapter 5. But like as I said, I've been just kind of taking my time trying to do all the side quests because they're really fun.
15 hours in.
There's a substantial difference in our playtime. I'll say that.
Oh, you are dedicated, my friend. You are dedicated.
It's just what I play when I'm kind of like, I don't play I don't even have the time to play every day. But I might play 1 or 2 hours a night sometime. Like it can't do it every night, but I try. Cooney11, love the content, congrats on 12k. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for the congratulations. Hello there, Super Luigi Con. Hello there, Mario Cisneros. Thank you for the congratulations on 12k. I will try my best to keep the good content coming, and more Zelda. We all want it, and I'll try my best to talk about it. Quinn McDonald, thank you for the love. and I no problems with doing the podcast now, but I've been looking forward to this. Having Hope 5, hello there. T Elijah, hello there. Yes, I got a haircut, guys. Thanks for noticing. Nintendo quality hype, right? And thank you, Having Hope 5, for letting me that everything looks and sounds great. Awesome. I'm glad it does. So that way you guys can actually hear us.
Yeah.
Paul Dunn, you think Zelda will be saved for the Game Awards? Maybe. I don't think... I think there's a decent chance that Zelda will show up for the Game Awards. We'll touch on that. But I don't think that's necessarily the first time we're going to see it this year. But it could, you know? And it's not a crazy prediction.
Shock me, to be honest. But we'll talk.
Apparently he thinks it's a crazy prediction. We'll see. Super Luigi Con, I think Zelda will be delayed again, and Nintendo will save Breath of the Wild 2 for E3 and possibly aim for a holiday 2023 release. That would be very disappointing, but at the same time, if that's when it's ready, that's when it's ready. Sean Corrigan, Andres, I feel like people don't talk about the possibility of a new 2D Zelda. Do you think Nintendo will do any? Do you think Nintendo will do another one anytime soon, or is it that much more likely we get Oracle remakes? So,
that's a good question.
Hopefully you already got your sandwich, Sean. I'll say, I think that when it comes to 2D Zelda, one, it's not done, right? No. And I know our friend Nate from Nintendo Prime likes to refer to them as top-down Zelda, which is not incorrect. But you know, it's kind of, people kind of sort of, when we say 2D Zelda, we think of just top-down Zelda, right? So I'm just kind of making that distinction for his sake. Hopefully you see this, buddy. But anyway,
to be fair, that is more accurate of a description.
It is. It absolutely is. But I think it's just kind of like a colloquialism, right? We just kind of understand what 2D Zelda, what that means. In terms of what I think will happen, though, right? I think that it's kind of tricky with the timing right now, because they're not going to give us a new 2D Zelda or a new top-down Zelda next year.
Get Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild too. There's no point.
Yeah, we gotta get Breath of the Wild first. I don't think there's any way they release like a new big Zelda project before Breath of the Wild, to be honest.
Yeah. Now, but I mean, I think most people are kind of in acceptance of that already by this point. Now, there is the question of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD, right? I kind of hope they come out this year, but as time progresses, that becomes increasingly less and less likely.
It's getting scary out there, boys.
We will be talking about that. It's kind of a big part of tonight's discussion, so don't worry, we'll get to that. But kind of trying to come to a conclusion to this question here, I think that it's got to be beyond Breath of the Wild too, right? Like, there will be a top-down Zelda again. That I think would be foolish not to. I mean, you look at the success of Link's Awakening Remake, it sold like, what, 4 or 5 million? That's a pretty good number. So, you know, I think if they produce a top-down Zelda, it can produce similar numbers. Maybe better if it's a brand new game, like it has that potential. But I think the earliest we could see it at this point, I mean, conceivably it could be maybe holiday 2024. Like about a year and a half removed from Breath of the Wild 2. I think that's the earliest we could see it come. In full honesty, maybe if anything, maybe even 2025, right? Like, for example, Link's Awakening Remake. When did it come out? 2019. When did Breath of the Wild come out? 2017. It was more than a two-year gap. So I feel like that's a reasonable expectation after Breath of the Wild 2. The next new Zelda could be a top-down Zelda about 2 years afterwards. Year and a half on the low end, 2.5 years. Well, I mean, to be frank, it could be 4 to 5 years might be the long end. But hopefully we don't have to wait that long.
I feel like we haven't seen a new 2D Zelda for the same reason we haven't seen a new 2D Mario in a while. And I feel like it's just they want to do something really special with it. 2D Mario even more so, just because it's gone so stagnant. But 2D Zelda, I feel like they're trying to figure out what makes it special on console specifically, because I don't think they've ever made a like, since the N64, since going 3D, like, they have not done a 2D Zelda on home console before, like, since then. It's not happened, right? Unless you count like the multiplayer games. So I wonder if they're waiting, you know, or working, not necessarily waiting, but they're working on something little more special. So they're trying to figure out what they can do to maximize the usage of a relatively simple like type of gameplay on a much more powerful console than they used to. That'd be my guess.
I think my take is that because it's all on one platform now, you go back to the handheld era where they needed to have a mainline Mario and Zelda on both their handheld and home console platforms. But now, since it's all in one place, they already do that, right? They already have, once they bring it out, that there it is. There's the mainline Zelda, there's the mainline Mario. So they kind of have to rethink their strategy a little bit in terms of how they handle that. And so it's a little tricky, right? But I think the fact of the matter is that we did get a top-down Zelda during the Switch era. It's Link's Awakening remake. It's a remake, but it's a good one. So, I think that the door is open for that. And then on the note of Mario, we technically have two 2D Marios, right? We have New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, and we have Mario Maker 2. A different variant of 2D Mario, right? It's a 2D Mario Maker, but still, it's 2D Mario gameplay. And the point I'm making here is that, even though we haven't gotten a brand new original entry for 2D Mario or top-down Zelda during the Switch era, we have had versions of those come out on the Switch. And to me, that says that the Nintendo has that in mind already, and they've both have sold well. So there's obviously a sales potential there. So I don't think they're going away. I do think, however, that they're not as important as their other counterparts, the 3D counterparts, and so like those are the bigger sellers. It's just from a business perspective, they are the bigger sellers, so they do take priority. But then on the flip side, 2D Zelda, 2D Mario are easier to make. They don't cost as many resources. They don't take as much time. So those can be brought out. I don't think they're going to bring them out more frequently, but they are things that they can do to help tide the gaps.
I still think at most we'll get like one new 2D Zelda like per generation, maybe two. Like we haven't even gotten one yet, this one, so not expecting them to start all of a sudden just pumping out 2D Mario or Zelda, even if they do find like what they want to do. But yeah, I didn't make it very clear, but part of my point was exactly what you're saying. Like they gotta compete with like bigger 3D titles now, so they have to make sure that the 2D stuff is also a good fit for Switch, because they're not on handhelds anymore. They gotta make something that's worthy of the platform, even within the stylistic constraints that they're going for in terms of like the top-down gameplay for Zelda or the 2D gameplay for Mario.
Yeah, they're working on it, but it'll come. I wouldn't be surprised. I think within 3 years, it's safe to say we'll see an update on at least one of those. That's my thought. Given the Mario movie, right, given the Breath of the Wild 2 will be out, I think I wouldn't be surprised to see an update on both franchises in the next 3 years. So we'll see. 3 years is just me trying to cover my bases, but we'll see. Moving on here with the chat. Let's see here. Super Luigi Kong. I picked up Xenoblade for the Wii at my local retro game store. It's my first with Xenoblade and liking it a lot. Glad you're enjoying it, and I'm glad you're playing it on its original system. That's nice to see.
Curious how much that copy cost you. Those are fairly rare.
They were expensive even when they first came out in the West.
Yeah,
they were.
GameStop was doing that whole shenanigans where they were opening copies so they could sell them for more as used.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right, seeing here Nintendo, hello there. Mark, hello there. Thank you for letting me know everything looks and sounds great. I appreciate it. Sean Corkin, dude, the sandwich is going to be amazing. Cold cut turkey with pepper jack cheese melted on the roll, then topped with mayo, lettuce, tomato. Very good. That does sound delicious. I just had some chicken pasta with tomatoes and stuff myself before starting the show. Yeah. By the way, please excuse that we started about 10 minutes late. I went on and I was like, all right, we're ready. And then I clicked on Discord because that's how I talked to Brandon, and it wasn't opening. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
What's wrong now?
Well,
Actually,
we're gonna
my
have
computer
to do
was
some more
broken.
troubleshooting after the podcast, so we can try to figure out the issue.
I think I figured it out already, Brandon. I didn't have time to even say anything. So like, some of you have been paying attention. I've mentioned how the channel's been struggling, and I've been trying to, work-life balance, right? It's been a struggle, but I feel like last week I've done an okay job. Not quite to what I want to do, but I've still had like videos coming, and I wanted to be even better in terms of timing and scheduling and stuff. But when I went to like go and edit, like every time the last couple of weeks I've gone to try and edit a video, my video editor doesn't open up. So basically Windows updated my computer, and since that update, the number of things have not been working. I had to reinstall Google. I just discovered I had to reinstall Discord, which, and my editor wasn't working. So every time I've had to open up an editor to make a video, I couldn't quite figure out why it wasn't working. So I did like a system restore, and I tried uninstalling, reinstalling the app multiple times, and I kind of Googled like the error code that would come up, and it would I would have to do that several times to get it to work, just to edit a video. And so I did that a few times to make a video, and then last Friday when I opened it up to kind of put together a video, I had a couple different recordings already like ready for multiple videos. It didn't work, and because I'd already done a few system restores in the last week or so, because of the previous times it wasn't working, I had no more system restores. So I couldn't restore the system back to before when the update had wrecked things, and I couldn't do it. They didn't have that as an option. So then I had to figure out what was going on and actually fix the problem instead of putting a band-aid on it and waiting for the Windows update to screw it up again. And I figured it out. I had to download like some sort of like C++ driver or something again. And I did it, and it didn't work. But then I did it again, and it worked. So hopefully it's been fixed. But now Discord wasn't working, so I don't know if I really fixed the issue, or again, I don't know. It's been messy, but maybe it's just because I hadn't used Discord since the issue had started, and now that I've reinstalled it, hopefully it's working now. We shall see.
Could be it.
Lots of complications there. Anyways, there's been issues. There's been issues getting stuff done from a tech end, from a busy work end, life end, all of that nonsense. But we're not stopping. We're not stopping.
We don't stop.
Right, I'm gonna focus on ads right now, guys. I'm glad that you guys are all in the chat. But if you add me, it's easier for me to get to it, and I want to get to the topic. So, forgive me if I don't get to your specific comment. But if you add me, am more likely to get to it. So let's see here. Charles Tradell. Even the music is perfectly balanced in the background. Okay, awesome. I'm glad it is.
Nice.
T. Elijah Morrison. What's the name of the music? I have 3 different songs on loop. If I remember correctly, one of them is the Water Temple music from Ocarina of Time. I think the other is Jolly Roger Bay for Mario 64. I think. I could be mistaken. And the one that's on literally right at this moment, I think, is Meridia from Super Metroid. So yeah, this track I've used a lot, but it's just kind of like very like water ambient, kind of good for discussion. They're all like water-based levels. There you go. So yeah. Jeremy Benz, who would win in Mario Strikers, Andres or Brandon?
Mario Strikers? I have not played that game. It's so long.
But I'm gonna say me.
I don't know. In real soccer, Andres. He's probably able to run faster and longer.
I think I'm a little taller than you, right? You're 5'10".
Yeah, you're a couple inches. You're a good like 4 or 5 inches taller than me.
I'm 6'1". Yeah.
Oh no, okay, you're like 3 inches taller than me, but still.
Yeah.
You got longer legs, maybe.
I'm also out of shape.
My legs are pretty long.
I'm out of shape though.
Actually. Fair. I do bike a lot.
I have not been doing that much running. I do play basketball though, but I haven't played.
I don't run a lot.
I've only played like once in the last like 2 weeks. Actually,
I will say biking and running is very different because running is high impact, where biking is not.
I do play sports though. I enjoy playing sports. I'm a gamer,
so you probably
but for me, gaming goes beyond just the controller. It's gaming in all facets of life.
I like sports. I just live in
everything.
A crappy place that doesn't have like anywhere for anybody to do that at.
Yeah.
There's like there's no courts around here. There's nowhere I can go to play basketball. Like maybe there's somewhere I can pay like to go,
Yeah.
maybe, but I
You also
don't
need
know.
people to play with. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see here. Game of Guide 2022. Breath of the Wild 2 is not in the September Direct. Another Zelda maybe though for December. Don't be surprised if the Direct is a week 3 of September to week 1 of October. Okay. Yeah, let's get into it. All right, let's actually jump into the discussion, guys. All right, so
Let's go.
there is an actual, tangible, legitimate rumor that a Nintendo Direct of some sort is coming this September. And this source that I'm talking about is actually Nate the Hate. Some of you may be familiar with the guy. He's on Spawnwave. He has his own channel, Nate the Hate. He also does direct feed games. He's typically one of the legitimate, reliable insiders that talks about things of Nintendo that are coming and is pretty much usually universally always right. Now, sometimes the timing may be off, sometimes the interpretation of what may be coming may be slightly off, but that's not me sliding Nate the Hate at all. That's just how it is across the board, regardless of who's leaking or saying the information. So you always take it with a grain of salt. But to Nate the Hate's point, he's not telling us what kind of direct it is. He does not know. He simply knows, from what he said in his most recent podcast, that a direct of some sort is a plan for September. And what's important about that wording here, and again, I am paraphrasing, but I think I'm getting the point across, is that it's planned. There is a direct of some kind planned for September. So there's a couple things to take from that. One, a direct of some kind. That does not mean a massive general direct. It might mean that. It might mean a partner showcase. It might mean a mini. It might mean a game-specific direct. Those are all possibilities, okay? But then on the flip side, but not the flip side, just on a whole other side entirely, talking about the other element of here, how he's saying it's planned. Just because there's a plan doesn't mean those plans will be followed through. Things can change. So regardless of what happens in September, we have to take this with a grain of salt. We can't 100% buy into it. It may not happen. So I'm saying this not in simply an attempt to quell anticipation, because I want you guys to be excited, because I mean it's fun to get excited, but also just be prepared for it to not happen, right? Don't 100% buy into this, because you shouldn't 100% buy into anything when it comes to speculation, because you don't know until it happens. It's just that simple. But this is going to be a talking point forever, because that's just the nature of the business. That all said,
It's nature of the beast.
Exactly. That all said, it makes sense for there to be a direct in September. Why does it make sense for it to be a direct in September? Brandon, you give me some points, because I could go on and on. Yeah.
Well, maybe because there's a direct in September, like, you know, every single year.
Even the year when there was the pandemic, there was still a Super Mario 35th Anniversary Direct, and I believe there was also a partner showcase that announced Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity.
There was a lot of partner showcases.
Well, maybe I don't. Okay. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure if Age of Calamity is revealed in the partner showcase. I'll have to go back and check. But
I believe it was.
Age of Calamity was revealed in September. Is the main point, along with Pikmin 3 Deluxe. So they had the Mario Anniversary Direct.
Monster Hunter Rise was definitely announced in the partner showcase.
Say what?
Monster Hunter Rise.
Yeah, but that was beforehand. Was it?
I'm just saying it was in.
Anyways, point is September had a number of announcements surrounding the Mario Anniversary Direct, and then obviously there's a Mario Anniversary Direct, which was a big thing in and of itself. So the thing that we were waiting for all year, the 3D All Stars pack, that came out in September. So even in the pandemic year, there was a number of things that happened in that month. It wasn't a general direct, but it was the closest thing we got to a general direct pretty much all year, save for the mini direct in March that year. So it was a big time.
Right.
But yeah, so to your point, yeah, Brandon, yes, we get information every September consistently. But another thing to talk about here is that we didn't get a June direct, right? They kind of went away from that. They gave us a partner showcase, and they've had a number of like shadow drop announcements and things like that. We got the Bayonetta 3 trailer, we got the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 announcements, we got the Splatoon 3 direct, obviously Xenoblade 3 direct.
Xenoblade 3 direct before then.
Right, and then yes, we had the partner showcase. They had the Kirby thing just kind of announced, and it just came out randomly a few weeks later. So there's a number of things that have happened.
Some Pokemon announcements too, right?
Yeah, there's been a number of Pokemon trailers announced.
There was a Pokemon direct, wasn't there? Was it a direct or a trailer or something?
There was.
Direct, right?
There was a Pokemon Presents.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Presents.
So yeah, we got a Splatoon 3 Direct, a Pokemon Presents, we got a Xenoblade Direct, we got a partner showcase, we had some Shadow Drop announcements, some trailer drops. So there has been information, but it hasn't been all part of a single Direct. So there's kind of a few things that have been sort of left out, right? But I feel the biggest reason why we should think that there's maybe a Direct coming isn't because that there's a history of it necessarily. That helps. It isn't because we haven't had one since the beginning of the year. That also helps, though. It's because I think we're getting to a point where there's a need to present information to us, and that's ultimately where it comes from. When there's a need to make announcements, and a lot of them, a Direct is usually what makes sense. Now, the difference between now versus June, one, I think Nintendo's want to try things a little different. There's always a chance Nintendo will do things differently, but also most of the things that were discussed, we already knew about. We just needed more details on, right? We already knew about Pokemon, we already knew about Bayonetta, we knew about Mario Rabbids, we already knew about Xenoblade, we already knew about Splatoon. All the things were known things that we expect to be discussed in a Direct, and they were discussed, but separately, and we already knew about them. Going into September, the idea would be that yes, they're probably going to give us a few more details on some things to close out the year, but I think its biggest, most important thing, the most important goal of that Direct would be to sort of set things up for to transition into next year. So yes, put a nice pretty bow on 2022 in terms of things that are coming, but also start to set up the understanding of the lineup for January, February, March.
We really don't know hardly anything. Do we know anything at all? Like, I can't think of one thing that we know, like, an actual date for next year.
Well, we do know that Nintendo has told us that the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is targeting a spring 2023 release date.
Right. But I'm saying
that may fall into the beginning of the year, but spring is a 3-month window.
That's a big window. Do we have anything that we know is going to be like January, February, March? Nothing.
Nope.
It's nothing. Usually we know something by now.
Nope. So we need information.
Usually we know
stuff.
one or two things.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest reason why we should expect news soon. Soon, however, does not necessarily mean September, though. So do keep that in mind. But given the history of there being September Directs, there's a decent chance. A counterpoint to throw out there, though, is that we did just get the Wave 2 DLC for Mario Kart. I feel like it might be a little strange for them to announce Wave 3 in the September Direct, given how long they took to give us information on Wave 2, you know? But granted, it's just DLC.
They didn't announce 2 in a Direct either, and they totally could have put that in the partner showcase. No, I guess that's first party, but anyways, they could have announced that like at any other point.
They just took a lot. They took a long time to give us that information, and it came out later than we expected. To then turn around and have a far shorter window for Wave 3, it just seems pretty unlikely. But it's also saying that they could easily skip a Direct and then they just announce it like a month later, right, or 2 months later, and on its own, and that's fine.
It could also be like Smash was, where there was a big gap and then all of a sudden they just start dropping characters.
Yeah.
So
they may want to catch up a little bit with Wave 3 too, so that's a possibility there. But I think there will be news because there's a need to give us that information. Now, what shows up in the presentation and what form the presentation comes in, that's obviously for debate. Like, for example, they could do something like where maybe they just simply announce that Advance Wars is coming out late January, for example, and they just have a Zelda Direct in September, and it's just basically talking about Breath of the Wild 2 for March. They could do that, and they don't even need to have a general Direct. They could wait until February.
I feel like it is early, though, to have a Zelda-specific Direct. I don't think it's too early to, say, have a big focus in a general Direct, like a 3 to 5 minute segment, maybe with some gameplay afterwards from the Treehouse or something. They do that even for normal Directs. It's not only an E3 thing. But It seems a little too early for them to want to just spill out 30 minutes. Like, I feel like that'd be more like a January, February type of time, you know, like a couple months before the game releases. Not like, I still feel like we're still like gonna be like, what, like 6 months out or so? 5-6 months out from where we think it's gonna release, you know, assuming it comes out in like March, which is like the earliest part of the spectrum.
Sure.
You know, so I feel like it is a little bit early for them to just be like, screw General Direct, we're just only talking about Zelda.
So, I mean, if we look at the Splatoon 3 Direct, it came out basically a month before the release of Splatoon 3.
Xenoblade
right?
3 was about a month before
About 5 weeks. Yeah. So, because I'm looking here,
Definitely
Xenoblade
seems
Chronicles
too
3
early.
happened June 2022, the Direct. It released July 29th.
29th.
So about
2 days
5
before my
weeks later.
birthday.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Splatoon 3, it comes out September 9th, but we got the Direct on August 10th. So about a month away. So a 4 to 5 month, 4 to
5 weeks.
week window, correct? Thank you. Is what we've sort of seen.
Yeah.
And actually, that doesn't count. I was looking at the Animal Crossing Direct. That was like an Animal Crossing Direct that came out after the game came out. That's different. Anyway, so yeah, to your point there, it looks like Nintendo likes maybe waiting a month beforehand if it's going to be a game-specific Direct. But also, we may have had those game-specific Directs because they didn't have a normal like E3 Direct, right? Like, that's why they kind of like spread out that information there. So, you know, I don't know. Like, you can look at something like Smash Brothers that had multiple Directs before it came out.
Good, right. Either way, I don't think it makes a good case. Either of those points make a good case for having a Zelda Direct, to be honest. But I do think both of those make a good case for them talking about it in September in a general Direct.
I
do think they need to talk about it, right? Like, I think they need to start the hype cycle.
This is what you do.
Because they have killed the hype cycle.
I agree with that. Like, I think Nintendo is in the position where people are losing excitement for Breath of the Wild 2. Like, it's kind of like off. It's just maybe that's just our own disappointment. But I just think there's not that much excitement for it right now. And you know, you can fix that easily just by talking about the game, right? Like, it's that simple.
It will change in a second as soon as the next trailer drops.
Yeah. And to that point, you know, let's say there is a Direct in September. What they could do is something as simple as tune in on such and such date for about 40 minutes of information on games to come out at the end of this year and early next year, including a segment on the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You do that, people will be lining up for that presentation physically, even though it's going to be a digital presentation. Like, people are going to be so into that, myself included.
It's gonna be a million people waiting on the Direct.
Yeah, it'll be a great time. I would try and stream it, but you know, we'll see what happens because of work. But like they could do that, and there would just be so much energy and excitement for it, but they haven't done that, right? So it's kind of hard to say what will happen there. But I think you and I seem to think that there is a need for a information for next year. Like, we need to get that. How Nintendo conveys that information, we'll see. I think that it would be bad if Nintendo doesn't do a Direct. I'm not saying Nintendo has mishandled things throughout this summer. Like, I think it's been fine. But I think if they have new things to announce that are major, they should come in a Direct, right? Like, they haven't announced anything brand new that's like major outside of a Direct recently. You know, yes,
I would say
announced...
the general hype around Nintendo is not super big right now.
Yeah,
like, just in general.
That can change, but like, going back to my point...
I know, but that's what I'm saying. That's why I think a Direct is even more important, because I do think that a lot of people, even though I do think we got a good amount of information during the summer, and I'm not like super disappointed with what they did, I do think they did not do it in a way that drums up hype even close to what they could have, and I feel like they only really satisfied the core Nintendo audience and didn't do anything to hype up the general fan base, just like the more casual fans.
I don't
Like
know.
they pretty much only gave the people, like the hardcore viewers, what they needed to know, and that was kind of it. Like doing a direct, like I love Xenoblade, but doing a direct just for Xenoblade when people are expecting like a general direct, and then doing a partner showcase, it's just not what you're gonna. It's just not what's gonna drum up hype.
I guess the question is,
I loved it, but I also loved it when they only had Breath of the Wild in 2016 and they showed that game for 8 hours a day. Like, it's not what I love isn't always what's best for the company in general.
So I guess we have to ask ourselves, right? Like, what could have Nintendo done given what they have set up for this year? Like, first off, we don't know exact 100% what Nintendo's holiday lineup is. We assume it's what's already been announced, right? But there is technically a few things that have been rumored and discussed that could find themselves in there, right? Metroid Prime Remake, supposedly, according to Jeff Grubb, is Nintendo's holiday game.
Say that one more time?
Metroid Prime Remake is supposedly Nintendo's holiday game, according to Jeff Grubb.
Yeah,
Hasn't been announced yet. Has not been announced yet. Now, if it's coming out in November, they could announce it in a September Direct. They could do that. Advance Wars, when is that coming out? We don't know. There's also Twilight Princess Moon Waker HD. When are those coming? So think about this for a second. Let's say there's a Direct, okay? And they talk about Metroid Prime Remake and Advance Wars, and they're both coming out this year. They fit them in November, December. Do you think there's any room for Twilight Princess Wind Waker HD if they talk about these things in September? Like, when would they do that? At what point? Where do they fit it in?
Those games could honestly be shadow dropped if they really wanted to. They can fit those.
They could be eShop releases, but then there wouldn't be a physical release.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they could. I don't know. They could announce it for any time. Literally, they could sell it. Those games will sell no matter when. So honestly, it's more like the issue of where you're gonna fit around, like Zelda. I just don't think Zelda has any issue selling at any time.
Well, I'll tell you this.
For me, it's just not a concern.
I think in terms of timing, ideally, Twilight Princess Moon Waker HD would come out late September. But my problem with that is that because they haven't been announced yet, I think it's kind of too late for that to happen.
I don't think so. I mean, if they have an early, September Direct in the first or second week, they could announce it for the end of the month.
Sure, right. I mean, and to your point, when we got the Mario Anniversary Direct back in 2021, a year that also was prevalent with partner showcases and not actual directs, they announced 3D All-Stars and it came out 2 weeks later.
You mean 2020?
Yes, 2020. I said 2021, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah, I meant 2020. Yeah, correct.
Okay, I already think it's 2023 half of the time. For some reason, we're only August.
But thank you for the clarification. I meant 2020. Back in 2020, when there was mostly partner showcases and not an actual direct because of the pandemic, they did have that Mario Anniversary Direct in September, and then 2 weeks later, still in September, they released the 3D All-Stars pack in time for the anniversary. So, could Nintendo do something similar with Twilight Princess Moon Waker HD this time around? I think so, but there's a difference. The difference is, everyone knew that 3D All-Stars was happening, like it was reported by so many venues. That's not happening with Twilight Princess Moon Waker HD. It's kind of more like a hope.
It's just
people.
It's a general. It's not really based on any facts. It's just based off of like logic and hope.
Yeah. Now there have been people who have said that they are coming, but they haven't specifically said that they're coming now. They actually thought most people thought they would have been out already. So we're not really sure what's going on with that.
Is interesting. I do kind of feel like maybe Nintendo, because every single company this year has delayed major games out of the year, like several huge games, and I do feel like Nintendo kind of may feel like they don't need to talk about anything till later in the year, which is why we didn't get like a bunch of stuff in the summer. But they also may feel like the kind of things we're hoping for are very small. Like we're hoping for like Wind Waker, Twilight Princess. I think that's a perfect fit for this year. And we're hoping for, I guess the biggest thing would be like Prime Remake.
Which is a remake
but honestly,
of an
that's
old
a
game.
remake of an old game that's gonna sell a couple million. Like it's not gonna be like a huge.
I mean, it might outsell Metroid Dread.
You're right. It might, but like even if it does, it's what I'm saying. It's like it's not like a 10 million. This is not a holiday seller game. You know, like this is not their big.
It supports, but it's not.
hitter.
It's not the main piece. Yeah.
I feel like I do. This is a weird way to go about this, but this is kind of like in favor of us seeing something in September, because I feel like they do need to talk about a little bit this year, but I feel like they're less concerned about this year as they are setting up for next year. Next year is going to be massive for all three companies. There are huge games coming out next year. Absolutely massive games. I mean, we got Breath of the Wild, we got Starfield, we got all kinds of games coming out that got delayed from this year to next year. And like Nintendo's got to set up their plans for how they're going to compete with that.
I'm gonna be the negative Nancy here and caution people to thinking that Nintendo is gonna have like a big year. I'm not saying they won't. I don't know if we have enough evidence to really say that for certain. Yeah, Breath of the Wild 2, and that's it. Like that's all we know about.
Yeah,
like,
we don't know anything.
Like could Nintendo also release a new 3D Mario next year and Metroid Prime 4 next year? And like, can that all happen? Could we get a new system next year? Those are all things that could happen in the same year. I actually think all of that could happen next year, but it also might not. New hardware might not come out till 2024. New 3D Mario might not come out till 2024. Metroid Prime 4 also might not come out till 2024. Breath of the Wild 2 might be the biggest thing we have for next year, which is a very big thing, but it might be the only big thing.
Biggest thing we're gonna have next year. I mean, that's no doubt. That's the biggest thing Nintendo has. Period. There is no game that they make bigger than Breath of the Wild 2. It doesn't exist. Well, 3D Mario in terms of sales, but I would say in terms of like general like hype and like targeting just pure core Nintendo fans, like 3D Mario does cater to obviously the hardcore, but it's also like huge on the casual side. Like people who buy Zelda, like previously before Breath of the Wild, it was just like us hardcore fans. There were a lot of us, but like casual fans didn't play Zelda. So it's interesting now. I feel like we have an even bigger hardcore fan base for Zelda than Mario has, and we're starting to get this casual fan base for Zelda. And I mean, like, let's just be honest. If they talk about a new 3D Mario game or a new 3D Zelda game in the same presentation, you know 100% that the Zelda game is going to get more attention. There's going to be more hype. It's going to get more videos on it. It's going to get more lore. There's going to be a million Zelda YouTubers talking about all the ways that this ties into the timeline. Mario, you might get some people who do some stuff like that, but nothing. Like, Zelda has so much more of a grasp on the core audience. And Zelda is Nintendo's biggest franchise, whether it sells the best or not. So,
I think that Breath of the Wild 2 has the potential to be that big grabber, to your point. But there's still that still needs to be other things. Like Breath of the Wild 2 alone is not gonna make it a big year. Now we do know that the Mario movie is coming out next year, and I do think a game coming out relatively close to the Mario movie makes sense, which is why I have a hope that we also see a new Mario next year. And considering that there hasn't been a follow-up to Odyssey, I think the chances are high that could happen. And I also think there's a pretty good chance we could see new hardware come out holiday 2023. So I do think there's a chance, and I also think Metroid Prime 4 might not be that far off. It really might not. Yeah. So all these things could fall in line. And you know, there's been rumors of an F-Zero game, right? There's been rumors of something coming from we know something's coming from Bandai Namco. Just checking the chat here, I do see that Donkey Kong's another one, Pikmin's another one. T. Elijah Morrison asked, "What if we have Luigi's Mansion 4?"
No, too soon.
It's too soon. Keep in mind that we just got Mario Strikers. Mario Strikers is made by the same team that made Luigi's Mansion 3.
Also, keep in mind, we've had 3 Luigi's Mansion games since, what, 2002? 20 years and we've had 3 games?
Well,
so...
Yeah, but Dark Moon came out not that long ago, and then they remade Luigi's Mansion for 3DS.
Dark Moon came out, like, pretty early in the 3DS, didn't it? Like, mid to early 3DS?
2012.
2012? So, yeah, it was 7 years before Luigi's Mansion 3? I wouldn't expect the game
2013
until the
actually.
next system.
It came out 2013, and then 6.5 years later.
Still 6 years though.
6.5 years later, October, right? March 20 to October.
I would not expect them to put another Luigi's Mansion game on the Switch. A big focus Luigi's Mansion, and it's something that I don't think Nintendo really. For some reason, they don't acknowledge this, but it's very true. Luigi's Mansion games are a very big staple of pushing hardware. Like, every single one of them was like a big staple technological showcase for their system when they came out. The original, didn't that launch with the GameCube? That was huge.
So I just want to, I'm trying to make an argument here. You're saying we haven't gotten that many Luigi's Mansions if we think about its initial release, but I think they came with the initial Luigi's Mansion. They didn't plan to make another one. Then they made the sequel that came out early 2013, but then they made a remake of Luigi's Mansion 1 for 3DS that came out 2018, and then Luigi's Mansion 3 came out 2019, and it's performed really well. Luigi's Mansion 3 sold really well, so I don't think I don't think we're necessarily super far off. I'm not saying it's coming out immediately. I don't think it's going to be
another 6 or 7 years after. I don't think it's going to come out 2026 or something. Like, it might. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't expect it on this.
It ain't gonna be a yearly franchise either, right? Like, no. Yeah.
I think that they're going to want to push
2025. Honestly, I could see that. I could see that. That's when it comes out. Like, yeah, 2025.
We have yet to see 2 Luigi's Mansion games in the same system.
I don't think we will.
I don't think we will. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love to. I mean, I love Luigi's Mansion. I think we gotta wait a little while for it.
Luigi's Mansion is like the best tech demo game you could ever like hope for, because it shows like the best that that the system can do on like every platform it's on. Mm-hmm. But it's also just like one of my favorite games on every platform it's on.
Yeah, Luigi's Mansion 3 is amazing. I love it. I recommend it to a lot of people. It's a great co-op game, by the way.
I've not got to play co-op. I have no friends.
I want to address a point that's been brought up in the chat. Like, for example, Joycey J is not the only person. A few people brought this up. J.R. Tolkien as well. I'll read both of what they said. So J.R. Tolkien first said, like so many other Zelda fans, my excitement for the Breath of this is not okay. I saw this is a completely different comment, but I'll read this one. J.R. Tolkien says, like so many other Zelda fans, my excitement for Breath of the Wild sequel is more or less dead. We've had more announcements that there is nothing to announce than actual information. Yeah, kinda. You know, like, oh, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later, right? Like, it's definitely in a weird situation right now.
I'll say this: if they announce Wind Waker and Twilight Princess in the next direct, there is no way in hell they do not mention Breath of the Wild. And I think there is a good chance that they would actually show it as well. I think I have different possibilities and they all have different chances. I think there's like 2 major possibilities that I'm going with. One, they only mention Breath of the Wild. No, there's 3. Okay, so 1, they only mention it and they don't say anything else. They just say, we're working on it. Okay, bye. Right? That's option number 1. That's like 50% chance for me. Option number 2, they only show a teaser trailer, but they don't do anything like announce the name, announce a specific release date. They just have another teaser trailer and say spring again. Option number 3, they actually have like a decent segment after it for the game, like a 3-minute trailer they announce the name. They maybe not announce the exact release date, but they say like month, or they might just say spring again. I don't know. But like a big segment, like 3-minute trailer. Those are kind of the 3 options. And I feel like that's a low percentage for me, but it's still like pretty high. I'd say like 30-40%. But I'd say, honestly, the one that seems like the biggest percentage for me is that they just do another short teaser trailer for the game and then just say they'll talk about it later. Because I don't think they're just going to say they're working on it. I don't think that's going to make people happy enough. Like, that's honestly more of a slap in the face than just not mentioning it. Just coming up there and to just, like, tease that you're going to say something again, just to say that you're not saying anything.
Yeah, I don't believe that. I think what's going to happen is that Nintendo is going to talk about Breath of the Wild 2. That's just what I think. I think a lot of people are concerned for Zelda because it hasn't been discussed so much.
Right.
I honestly...
Nobody knows what makes
let me
Breath
tell you
of
what I
Wild 2
think.
Breath of the Wild 2.
I'm going to tell you what I think right now. All right. So, Breath of the Wild 2, if it is coming out March, which we do not know, but if it is coming out in March, then it will be discussed at length in a September Direct. If it is not coming out in March, then it will not be discussed at length during a September Nintendo Direct. It may be teased, it may be mentioned. I think that, honestly, I think it would be weird for Nintendo to go another Direct without mentioning Breath of the Wild 2. And in truth, I think
that's why I didn't even put that as an option.
I think there's actually a pretty good chance, a pretty good reason why we didn't get a main Direct. May in part have to do with the fact that they weren't ready to show off Breath of the Wild 2 yet. I think Nintendo may acknowledge that the messaging of having a major Direct and not talking about Breath of the Wild 2 again might not be the best thing to do.
Especially if it was an E3 Direct.
Especially if it was an E3 Direct.
That would have been bad.
And that might have a lot to do with why they decided to do things in the way they did, because they looked at what they had so far and what was ready, and they realized, hey, we have good stuff this year, but it's all stuff we've already talked about. Does it really make sense to have a Direct to talk about things that people already know about? And I think maybe that has something to do with the fact with why they didn't have a Direct, you know? Hindsight's obviously 2020, but thinking about it now, hypothetically speaking, let's just think about this for a second, guys. If we were to get a Nintendo Direct in June, and they were to basically talk about everything, they were to give us all the information they've given us up to today, but in a Direct form, so some of that would have been spliced down shorter, would we have considered that a great Direct? I think we would have considered it a solid Direct, but I think the overall impression would have been, wow, there was nothing new in that Direct. They just talked about things we already knew about. And if you think about it in that way, assuming that would have been the case, what they've done is actually better. And I know a number of you guys have brought up in the chat how Nintendo has not handled their summer plans well. I think it could have been better. I'm not saying it couldn't have been, but if you think of it in the way I just mentioned, they did handle things in the right way. But here's where there's like perhaps
I feel like there's a big asterisk. I feel like this only
the asterisk
works.
Let me finish this point, Brandon. But
Go on, because I think you're gonna say what I.
Yeah, the asterisk is this is all with the assumption they had nothing else to show off, right? They could have.
You went a different angle than I was going to.
It's okay. I'll finish my point. We'll get to yours. So
cool.
The Direct, right? If they had like a Breath of the Wild 2 teaser, and they were also ready to announce the Metroid Prime remake, and maybe tease something else for next year, say maybe F-Zero, and they fit that into a Direct with everything else we have, I think that would have been considered a solid Direct. But we don't know if they were ready to show off things for Breath of the Wild 2 yet, right? Maybe just kind of think, if you go and talk to Aonuma, and if they had a discussion with him, it's like, hey, so what can we kind of show off for this game right now? And they had that discussion, they talked about the delay, and maybe they ultimately decided that it just didn't make sense for the game's marketing to put together another teaser trailer after the multiple they've already done. Because maybe they already understand that at this point, fans are getting fed up, they want some real tangible content, and to just do another teaser trailer that might have been considered distasteful. So they just didn't show it off. Even though they could have, it wasn't the right time for them. And so you think
Which
about
makes
that.
sense because they could have shown this game off so many times in the past at different events, and they didn't.
Right. So, you know, that may be why things have happened the way they have, because they were things that they maybe wanted to have ready, but they weren't quite ready. So instead of putting it together a direct that would have been considered overall subpar because they didn't have any brand new announcements to do, not a lot of them, they just did it in the way they did. And that makes sense. Now, is it the best thing possible? No, but it might be Nintendo trying to make the best of their current situation. And ultimately, it's not going to matter that much for us in the long run. Yes, we have to wait long for Breath of the Wild 2, but in terms of actual games we're playing and enjoying, I think we're at a really good pace. And if they do, well, I know, I'm sorry, Brandon, I'm continually talking here.
You're good.
But if they do close out with a couple other little things, which I don't think they need to do, but if they did, say Metroid Prime Remake, maybe Advance Wars or something, like that would, even one of those things, right? I think that would be a nice way to solidify a very strong lineup for the year. It's just kind of more about talking about what's for next year, which again, we know nothing about, which adds even more importance to having some kind of presentation of 2023, because we just haven't gotten it yet. Your point now.
But to your point, like before I get into this is going to lead into my point. To your point, what have we not seen so far, really, that we expected to see? I mean, we saw Xenoblade 3, we saw Bayonetta 3, we saw Splatoon 3. You know, we've seen, we saw stuff for Pokemon. It's like the amount of games that are coming out this year that we haven't seen stuff for is like nothing. It's just stuff that we think might come out, like, Metroid Prime Remake.
That's really kind of the main thing.
So it's just really it. So, like, I get it. Like, would that have been their only surprise then? Would have just been Metroid Prime Remake?
Which is a remake.
That's the only thing new?
Which is a remake. It's not even actually new, right? Or Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD. Yeah, that's also not new. That's less new than a Metroid Prime remake in a way.
And those are just remake. Those are just ports of remakes.
And then Advance Wars, which is a smaller release, that also is a remake.
Yeah,
they got delayed. We're supposed to be out next year. So that's a lot of stuff that's all good stuff, but not brand new original things that are going to really rock the boat. So, you know, it's
that leads into to my point is this only works, I think, if we actually do get a September Direct. Like, the Nintendo only makes this like be okay, like what they've done so far, if we actually do get the information like relatively soon, like September or October. Like we need to see, like, I understand, like, sure, wait to show us Breath of the Wild, but you do actually have to show us eventually. Like, wait to talk about those things, because usually, like, at E3 we might get like a game or two for the next year, right? I understand maybe you only have like that and Prime as your only like new announcements. You might want to wait, but you still actually have to show it. So, like, it's all fine and good if you wanted to wait a few months till September, but if they don't bring it in September, that's going to be an issue. Or do you disagree?
It's just one of those things where, like, hypothetically,
waiting's fine, but you got to deliver.
Well, the fact of the matter is, we have nothing for January or February or March. We just don't, right? So they have to make announcements for that. Could they continue to shadow drop? They could continue to shadow drop, but I think what'll happen is
they can only shadow drop small stuff. Like, they can't shadow drop big things.
The mystique, the hype, will continue to dwindle.
Yeah,
I think the shadow drop announcements, like, they're nice.
Thing is not working anymore.
It's not that it doesn't get the job done. It gets the job done, but I want to go back to a point I made earlier, and I really want to harp on this point because I think it matters. Think about when we get social media announcements. When are they for brand new games? The only one I can think of in recent history is the Kirby eating minigame thing. But that's a small, $15 eShop game that was announced and released within a few weeks of itself. Like, that's a small product. But if we're talking about like a big $60 sort of effort, like a Xenoblade Chronicles 3, a Splatoon 3, a Breath of the Wild 2,
Gotta hype them.
Can you see Nintendo just announcing that in a trailer? They haven't done that, right? Think about it. We did get a shadow drop for Wave 2, right? But Wave 1 wasn't shadow dropped or announced. It was done in a direct. There's been rumors of a Metroid Prime remake, right?
Outside of a direct would be Paper Mario in 2020.
That is the one
when weren't directs.
That is the one exception.
Because everything was crazy.
That was the pandemic year, to your point, right?
And honestly, I think if Nintendo had known that was going to happen, they would have announced it in the direct previously. Like if they knew how bad things were going to be. Because there was a direct like a month or two before. They would have announced it then. Like I think that game was supposed to be announced in a direct. There was no way it was supposed to be announced in a trailer. Like they would have announced in a direct if they had known.
I think they knew they weren't doing any. There was
going
to be no E3 plans at that point, so that's why they did it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tricky situation because I don't know. That one's just tricky.
I'm 99% confident it was not supposed to be a trailer drop.
I mean, the fact of the matter is Nintendo doesn't do that. There was a pandemic year where there weren't directs, and that's when it happened. So I think there's that's probably not a coincidence. But the main point is Nintendo doesn't usually have, when there's a direct, there's brand new game announcements. And all these social media announcement things have been great, but for the most part, they've been updates on things that were already announced. So, for example,
the only time they talk about things that are only announced is minis, which is what we got, Partner Showcase.
Now, we don't know if this is actually going to happen yet, right? But if the Metroid Prime remake is real, and they save it for a direct announcement, this would add to this theory, right? Because they could have announced Metroid Prime remake already, but they didn't have a direct. And if it's actually coming out for their holiday, and they save it, it's announced for a direct, even though it's just 2 months removed from when it would actually be coming out, it would add to this theory, because then it would tell us for sure that the way Nintendo sees things, for the most part, in general, there's always exceptions, but in general, they prefer their big releases to be announced in a direct. And if it's something that's already been established and already been announced, to give us an update on it via social media drop or trailer drop, that's a little different. We won't know about Metroid Prime Remake until a September Direct happens. It may not happen, right? So let's, this theory could be wrong, but given everything that's happened, I feel like this is kind of what makes sense here. So ultimately, Nintendo didn't have a Direct because they just didn't have a lot of new things to announce. But now, going into next year, with pretty much we have almost no knowledge on that, there's a need to have a Direct because that's what they use to make new game announcements. So what will that be? Well, that's a Direct will tell us, right? We may get a trailer on the Mario movie finally. Maybe there is a Mario game getting lined up, and maybe it's a 2D Mario instead of a 3D Mario. That's an earlier release, right? Because that would probably fit better next to a 3D Zelda than like a 3D Mario, right? Like you'd rather have 2D Mario, 3D Zelda coming out within a few months of each other than two 3D variants, right? Or vice versa. So maybe that. Or maybe
that hasn't happened before.
Sure. Maybe Donkey Kong is announced,
3D World and. Well, I guess that was a 2D. Never mind. I was going to say something completely off.
A Link Between Worlds and 3D World.
Yeah, Link Between Worlds and 3D World, but that's a 2D or top-down Zelda versus a kind of 3D Mario.
Well, but also two different platforms. It was
either way, it doesn't really fit.
It was the 3D Mario for the Wii U, right? Even though it didn't really measure up to our standards for a 3D Mario per se, it was still a solid game. Still technically a 3D Mario. And still also separate platforms, so that our set of arguments a little different. Honestly, I consider
Galaxy the same way. Well, let's not get into that argument. I'm just going to open that bottle and release it and back away.
I think the point is that they're different enough, that it would just make a little bit more sense there. But again, they're different platforms, so it's just a different situation.
Right. But even I think 3D Mario and 3D Zelda are very different games. I do feel like they go for the same audience, so maybe not, release them super close, but technically, like, the gameplay is not that similar. I would say, like, other than the fact that you're kind of exploring environments, I would say that's pretty similar between the two. I think it's
more about just spacing out your huge releases.
Yeah, that would be the issue I'd see.
But of course, there are sometimes two games that come out a month apart from each other and they still both do perform really well. I'm not saying a 2D Mario is coming out. I'm just saying that
they could announce Odyssey for later in the year, too.
They could tease it, right? They could at least tease a new, I don't think it'll be called Odyssey, but a new 3D Mario That's a possibility. Although they could also still say that for next year. Like they could be. So let's say we got a September Direct. They talk about Breath of the Wild 2. They give us a Mario movie trailer, and they give us a couple other announcements for early next year. Let's say it's F-Zero and Pikmin. You just a couple, like, and that's actually like not bad. Like, say this F-Zero is like a multiplayer centric kind of thing, right? Like, so it's kind of you kind of have like your hardcore online multiplayer thing, so it hits a certain market. They have Pikmin as like another niche Nintendo title that's kind of like a little that offers it's a difference in gameplay style, and then you have your big 3D adventure in Breath of the Wild 2, and that's kind of like Nintendo's like sort of like early sort of like 2023 lineup. Like something like that could work.
I don't want to talk about it for a long time, but I want to throw an idea out about Pikmin that I've been thinking about because I feel like it makes some sense, not completely, but I don't want to spend a long time, maybe like just 2 or 3 minutes here, but we're thinking a big thing about the next system is going to be resolution, right? A DLSS getting us games from the typical 720p and 1080p to 4K or so, right? And Pikmin is a game where you have a lot of zoomed out screens. You have very small Pikmin on a map when they can be viewed at very small angles. And having higher resolutions means you can see more clearly these small characters. You can have maybe more on screen and be able to read them far easier, zoomed out more than you would say a 720p game like Pikmin 3, where you're going to lose a lot of that readability when you zoom out. And I'm wondering if they're concepting Pikmin specifically with the idea of targeting like a higher resolution and higher fidelity, like way more Pikmin on screen. My only quibble with this is I imagine that the next gen Switch will still have a 720p screen. It might have 1080p if they manage to find a way to do DLSS on the go. But like say like even the Steam Deck has a 720p screen, and that thing's a beast. Like running games above 720p on the go is very battery intensive. So that's my only thing is like, do you make a game focused on like showing off 4K if you're going to also have like this 720p or 1080p version of the game on handheld? But I still think it could work, to be honest. I still think Pikmin, like using the power of like a next gen Switch, they could do so much more with gameplay, having so many more Pikmin and having these bigger areas too. So just something I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Pikmin
maybe
4
that's why we haven't seen Pikmin
K,
yet.
right? Like it's Pikmin 4,
Pikmin
but it's
4K.
also the 4K. Like I think that
There's
works.
no way they do that. That'd be so cringe. Naming it that, by the way.
Really?
That'd be so cringe. There's no way.
One moment, I think
Nintendo...
Ruby wants to come inside. Go,
Okay.
Good luck.
Good luck. I want to see if anybody in the comments is. Anybody else think? What do you guys think about my theory? Has anybody mentioned? I like just said it. So. Are you guys talking about Sekiro? Why are you talking about Sekiro?
Having Hope 5, I think you were asking about Ruby. I just let her into the room. She was downstairs. So, she may pop up at some point.
Anyways.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we haven't seen Pikmin in a long time. And I think, like, a next-gen Switch... Because it's not all about the visuals. I think Nintendo, obviously, they haven't been about the visuals since freaking, like, GameCube days. And even then, they were, like, really going more high concept than more cartoony, more interesting styles. They haven't been really focused on realistic styles since the N64. But, like, obviously they're not wanting to do it just for graphics, but I think, like, a next-gen Switch could actually boost gameplay mechanics, like, so much. So I think that might be something that Nintendo would actually be interested in. Because I don't think they would just delay, like, Pikmin 4 just to have it on, like, a higher, more powerful console for graphics alone. I think this offers gameplay concepts that Nintendo would be more interested in.
Yeah. I think there's definitely some cool stuff they could be doing there. I'm somewhat distracted because Ruby's now on my lap.
I'm just watching my dog. She's just laying down in the corner, sleeping.
Yeah, but let's check on the chat real quick here, and then I want to focus specifically on Zelda's potential part in this direct. Yes,
Gotcha.
That's my nose, Ruby. Thank you. All right, here. So, Joycey J, I low-key like going to next year blind, and if they did a Breath of the Wild 2 push by the end of this year and really wow in 2023, like I would love to see that. You know, I think that we are going to start getting Zelda news soon. That's my take on it. But that's with the assumption that Breath of the Wild 2 is a March release. If Breath of the Wild is coming out later, then no. So I'm looking towards September, and depending on what we get in September, that's going to tell me how far off Breath of the Wild 2 really is. So if it's gonna hit that March time, then we are getting information next month. That's what I think. Going back to the chat here. What were you gonna say, Brandon?
I'm gonna wait till we talk more about Zelda. I'm gonna wait because it's a whole thing.
Okay. All right, T. Elijah Morrison. Do you think that the Mario movie is going to be anime or cartoon or real world like Sonic the Hedgehog movie? It's gonna be.
Oh, it's gonna be animated. It's
gonna be a 3D animation, kind of like
It's gonna be like Despicable Me, but
exactly right.
Mario.
It's made by Illumination, yeah. Exactly.
I wouldn't be too surprised if they go for something. They made like these animated trailers for Odyssey and stuff, like music videos for the DK song that they had, or not the DK, that Donkey Kong song. You know what I'm saying? The one for the DK map. Words are not coming to brain, but you know what I'm saying. Anyways, I wouldn't be too surprised if it looked like that, like this sort of like
it's Ruby cast.
Way higher fidelity Odyssey style. That'd be nice. But I think it's going to have a little bit of a Illumination flair, which is fine for me. I like Illumination. I like what they do. I don't understand why people hate Despicable Me so much. I haven't seen the Minions. That might be trash. I don't know. But I thought Despicable Me 1 was really, really good. 2 and 3 are also good. Well, 2 is amazing. 3 is... I don't know what happened there. But I don't know why people hate Illumination, but I am hyped to see what they do, whatever style they go with. I just came back to the Discord to see you with the cat. That's adorable.
She's talking now. It's her show. What do you have to say, Ruby? Are you looking forward to the Mario movie? You gonna watch the Mario movie with me? Probably. Okay, she's done. She's not done, but she's
are they gonna have Cat Mario in the Mario movie?
What if, right? That's not.
They totally could. That is definitely not on the question. I really hope they bring like powers and stuff into it. Like, I hope they are like high concept with this movie. Not to get on like a Mario movie tangent right now, but like I really hope they go, because Mario is like, there's so much to the Mario universe, and like I know they're just not gonna pull from it. I just know they're not. Like 100%. I think it might not be like as stale as Mario has been in the past with like Sticker Star era kind of stuff, but it's not gonna be a 1,000-year door. It's not gonna be a Bowser's Inside Story. But maybe they'll surprise me and they'll blow my mind and they'll bring awesome original characters like Fawful, not necessarily Fawful, but like make original characters for Mario universe. That's just what I hope. So for me, like, I'm not too worried about the style. There's like so many other issues for this movie that it has to get past.
Mario talking.
Yeah, like Mario talking. Like, I have no worry about the actual look of the movie. I'm sure it's gonna look amazing. It's a super high budget Illumination Studios animated movie with Nintendo.
I just want to see a trailer for it. I want to see a trailer for it so we can talk about maybe there being issues that we don't know. It might be just one of those things where Nintendo wants to be very careful about the messaging of it, because once they show it off, it's a big deal, because they're going to show off Mario talking for the first time.
Yeah.
Actually talking. I don't just mean like, hey, mom, like freaking, like,
Yeah. They don't want
where's my lasagna?
Original Sonic movie teaser situation happening.
Yeah.
Because that was bad.
So let's talk about this, right? We're not planning on having necessarily a long podcast, because we're actually, We're about an hour and a half in almost. Zelda's part in this direct. There's a few angles here, right? We've touched on this throughout the night, but there's the couple angles are, because I don't think we're talking about top-down Zelda. I don't think that's an element here.
Nope.
But
you gotta get past Breath of the Wild before that.
Right, unless Breath of the 2 gets canceled, but it's not getting canceled, so don't worry.
Unless it gets delayed to 2024, which I do not see. Like, if it gets delayed again, right, it'd be to the end of the year. It'd have to get delayed twice.
It just doesn't...
It'd have to get delayed twice.
I just don't see that happening. Because it's not like this is a ground-up new Zelda with a new engine, new art style. They already made Breath of the Wild. This game looks like Breath of the Wild.
I'm just going ahead and throwing away all my preconceived notions about what this game is, because I feel like we have no freaking clue.
And that's exciting.
We haven't seen anything. I feel like they want us to think that we've seen some stuff. We haven't seen nothing. I don't believe we have scratched the surface of what this game is going to be. We don't know anything. Okay, the biggest things we know, Ganondorf's gonna be in the game. There's a sky area. And it's somewhat gonna be the same map. Somewhat.
Yeah, I mean, we know about some mechanics.
Those are the three things we know, and we barely know anything about those three things. Like, anything. There, we don't know. We don't know. And you know what? I want to know. I guess let's just say it. Like, what do you think the chances are that we are going to know what this game is from this direct? Like, before we get into it, because we might convince ourselves one way or another. I want to know your initial thoughts right now before we talk about it.
This is what I'm expecting. Okay, I'm expecting the first real trailer for this game in September, and obviously I could be wrong on this. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I expect the first real trailer. So what do I mean by first real trailer? To me, that means we're going to get about a 3+ minute trailer, 3.5 minute trailer. It's going to detail a number of things about the gameplay mechanics and the story, and we're going to get a release date alongside also the title of the game. There's a lot of information for 3.5 minutes. I think that can be done, but I think also with that, while it will be substantial, it won't tell us the whole picture. So we'll have a strong working understanding of some parts of the game. We won't know the whole thing.
Right.
Like, for example, let's Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. With the first trailer, we knew, okay, this is an open world Pokemon game. Awesome. But did we know it was gonna be like it's gonna have like the terrorization mechanics? Did we know that how the gyms were gonna be handled? No. And we still don't have a full working understanding of the game quite yet either, even with several different trailers. So I think we're gonna have a piece to the puzzle finally, a legitimate piece, and not just like little slivers. Like we're gonna have a somewhat of an idea of the structure, but we're still gonna be a long ways off before having a full picture. I think that's fine. I think that's actually exciting, because there was gonna be all that discussion trying to piece it together, trying to figure it out. Right now, we're splicing for details right now, right? Like there's only so much they've actually given us. So that's kind of like what I'm sort of thinking we should see in the September Direct if it's coming out this March, which it may not be.
Okay. Instead of giving you my thoughts, because my thoughts are very similar to your thoughts, I'm just going to question you further about your thoughts, because I feel like that's the best way to go.
Fun to me.
So, what exactly? Let's dig deeper into what you mean by a real trailer. Cause let's dig deep into that, because we gotta quantify what separates this current trailers from what you would consider a real trailer for the game. And I have some thoughts on that. First off, maybe some actual like explanation, even if it's not like a voiceover of somebody talking over the trailer. I don't think they're gonna do that. I think it's way more cinematic than that. But we might have somebody, like a King of Hyrule type figure who does some voiceover narration and explains some things going on. Like, actual explanation and not just showing random stuff happening is a big part of what I think makes, like, the first real trailer for the game. What do you think about that?
I don't necessarily need a narrator. I actually sometimes don't like narrators in my trailers, because I'd love it for the narrator to be a
I mean, like,
surprise for the
something
game.
that's very well integrated, very, like,
I
you know,
want
like
actual
something like the King of
explanation.
Hyrule talking
What I
over.
want is actual explanation of the game. That's what I want.
I'm saying, like, lines pulled from the game, like cutscene lines, like trailer-esque. No, I'm not talking like
well, I guess
somebody talking
to your
over the
point,
trailer, explaining what's happening.
You can argue that what we've gone so far, everything we've seen so far feels very unfinished, right? Like, we don't...
Extremely unpolished.
Like, I want to see, like, straight, true gameplay.
Yes.
You know, I want to see straight, true gameplay. I'd like to see straight, true cutscenes. You know, not little spices where we're not really sure what it is. I want it to be presented. I want the game to be presented in a way where I'm learning about actual elements of the game that I'm going to be able to interact with.
I still think there's going to be a lot of splicing of story. I just don't think there's any way you can do a cutscene where any one story element, or like a trailer where any one story element, like, is on screen for more than like 15 to 30 seconds. The thing is,
what we've gone so far is almost, it's
nothing. There's no dialogue. It's just them walking around.
It's too vague.
Stuff.
It's so vague right now. Yes. We just don't know. We don't really know what's happening. Like, for example, look at the Xenoblade commercials. Like, the voice acting gives us an understanding of what's going on, right?
Right. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm saying. I was gonna bring up those trailers actually, because that is exactly the kind of thing I think of when I'm talking about the voiceovers, quote unquote. Voiceover is a bad choice of words. I just mean, like, snippets from the game that, like, from cutscenes and dialogue in the game that further explain what's happening. Not like a recorded person talking over the game explaining what's going on. I think that's a big thing. What else do you think? Because, like, straight up gameplay, what do you mean? Because obviously it's going to be cut up, but we have seen some very slight actual straight up gameplay. To be fair, we've seen some actual moves. That move where he's going from, like, he's in the sky and he's doing that water droplet move thing, you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Where he can, like, go through the platforms in liquid form. However that works, we're not sure yet. We see that's actual just straight up gameplay. They just showed that. I mean, technically, that's gameplay. They showed off another mechanic with the time stop power, that the other rune replacement power. Like, we saw, like, but very little. Like, you're right. We've seen, like, it's just been, like, seconds of actual gameplay in that second trailer. I do think we'll see more, like, concept of, like, what we can do, because we haven't seen gameplay actually pushed in a way that is within context of something that, like, makes sense, like an aha moment of, like, how we're going to use this power to our advantage. I guess we kind of saw that with the, like, reverse stasis time thing, but that's, like, a very much more basic mechanic. Like, I'm wanting to see, like, gameplay mechanics that show us, this is what they're doing with Breath of the Wild 2. This is the big mechanic change in the game. That's a big thing. How much of the map do you think they will show? That's another thing I want to ask, because I feel like that's, like, the next big thing that
feels
I'm
like something that they wouldn't show off until a Zelda Direct.
You think so? Because we've seen nothing of the overworld change.
Well, like, we might get a look at that.
Different.
I mean, the thing is, it's going to be a mystery. I think that's going to be part of the fun. Now, we may be able to piece some things together after analyzing the footage that they may give us, but I don't think we're going to have a strong working understanding of the map until a Zelda Direct about a month or two before release. Yeah.
A month or two before release? I don't think so. I'm going to disagree hard on that, because let me finish. I want to introduce the point I'm making here.
I'm holding back.
I think the biggest concern for the game the biggest concern for this game amongst fans is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm gonna go on a limb and say it. It's that people are worried the game is not gonna feel like a big enough difference from Breath of the Wild 1 because the map is the same. That is absolutely the number one biggest concern for this game. I don't think there's anything else people are worried about more than that. There is absolutely no way you can wait a month before the game before you show us how this map is going to be different. You absolutely 100% have to nail that this map is completely different than the original, because Breath of the Wild is about exploration. And you cannot tell me that they're going to show this game and not show me how the exploration is going to be different from 1, because right now people are worried as hell that they're going to be running around the same exact locations just with some new missions or something.
Okay, I think that's actually a really good point, Brandon. And so
that's my biggest fear.
It makes sense. Right? It makes sense. I think it's a really good point. I think
more than story or anything, they have to show
the next trailer will need to focus on showing how this is a new Zelda game.
Yes. More than story, more than context.
So there may be a strong demonstration of different environments and differences. I still don't think we'll
see that underwater exploration.
Yeah, we may see stuff like that. We may see new areas. We may get hints towards how the map will change. I don't think we'll actually see the map itself. I don't think we'll see them flying over a vast expanse. Well, we might see that, but my point is we're not gonna. I don't know. I mean, we may see a couple shots of like the overall world, and we may see more differences, but we're just not gonna know how different the map is from the next trailer. That's not gonna happen.
I agree. I think we won't know everything, but I do think, honestly, if Nintendo wants to quell our fears with this game, I think the most important thing is to just show locations on the map that we've seen before. Not everything. Obviously, they want to keep a lot of surprises about what's different, because that's going to be a big part of the game, is exploring and figuring out what's different from the first game in terms of the map. But I do think they'll show some key locations. Maybe Kakariko Village, for example, or some of the other major towns. Maybe if there is a new town, they might show a glimpse of that, because I do think there might be new towns, new species.
Like, what if they showed like a shot of of like an up and running castle town?
How? I feel like you're not thinking this through, because in the trailers we clearly see that Castle Town is not up and running.
Like I
and
understand.
It's in the sky.
I get it. I know that.
You mean
castle,
time travel?
I know the castle has risen from the ground. There's a whole bunch of hellbent destruction, and Castle Town's right next to it, and it was left in ruins. I understand all that. I don't know how it would happen. Maybe it's not specifically Castle Town itself. Maybe it's in the past. Maybe it's in the future. Maybe Castle Town's been rebuilt elsewhere, or maybe it's still there and the castle's just above it. Like, you know, it could still be the case that Castle Town is there.
True.
And it could be like maybe like a Majora's Mask situation, right? Where like you're in the castle town, it's hustling and bustling, everything is great. You just look up and you're like, man, there's this castle though. It's kind of weird, right? Like kind of like the moon. Like they could still do that.
It depends on how the game is set up, because keep in mind, like in Majora's Mask, the moon is just like steadily getting closer, slowly over time, right? Like in Breath of the Wild, the castle just freaking rips out of the ground in front of everybody. Like a huge catastrophic event that probably caused earthquakes and ravines. Like, we're speculating this might have caused great shifts in the map. There's no way people are just like, oh, this is fine. Yup, definitely not real. Like, in Majora's Mask, like, you could kind of get it, because, like, the moon falling to Earth, that's absolutely ridiculous. Sometimes the moon just gets bigger in the sky. That happens in real life. Castles don't just rise from the ground for no reason. But, you know, not to completely dismiss your idea, there could be some sort of time travel or time stones, time shift stones. I know you're big on that. Could be some sort of time shift stone material appears, or I don't know, some way that we travel back in time.
Related though. Let's revisit. Let's tackle this idea. Let's assume what I just said, even though it may seem dumb. Let's just say the Castle Town is rebuilt, and the castle's not there, but Castle Town is. and you just engage in discussion with people. There's various side quests that are very Majora's Mask like, and they're referencing the castle just rising up. They talk about where they were at when it happened. Like, it might be kind of like these really interesting conversations, this dialogue, this dynamic of that occurring. Maybe the castle at first starts off freshly above Castletown, but it moves. Maybe as the game progresses, the castle itself is further and further higher up. It finds another central point of the world. Maybe the final fight is basically in space, which could be really beautiful to see. Like, imagine like fighting on the very top of the earth, where there's like, you see stars and like gas and things like that. What if like there's like a space dragon that comes in as like a mid boss or something, you know, when you're in the final fight, and then like they could really like up like the scale of it all by doing something like that. You know, it may seem stupid. I'm not talking about space. I'm just talking about like a really high level of the atmosphere, to the point where maybe even breathing is an issue. And maybe that's why you can't just go straight there. You have to find a way to get up because it's so high, but also a way to survive because it's so high. Maybe that's a possibility.
I do think the castle will be at one elevation. I think that makes like, it may be super high like you're saying. I just don't think it's going to move like steadily upwards as the game progresses. I just don't see how they would make that make sense. Like,
yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right.
But I do think
unless
like maybe
it
is like super high and there's some kind of equipment you need. I mean, we've had like equipment as like keys or gateways like before in Zelda, like you needing the red tunic or the blue tunic or Goron armbands or something else that you need to get strength or breathe underwater, be able to go through fire. Yeah, maybe there's some kind of something that allows you to breathe in space. I do think that's a bit of a bit crazy. I don't think that's gonna happen, but you know, it could. But to talk about Castletown, I think the only way this theory works. Hold on, I want to say my thing first, and then I'll let you continue because it's very short. My only thing is, I feel like this would only work if there was a large gap in time between when the castle rose and like when they started doing stuff. Because like obviously we see that Castletown has not been touched. They have not even attempted to clear away anything or try at all to start Castletown up again by the time the castle rises in the air. So they would need to decide from the time the castle rises. After that, they would need enough time to decide that they want to, for some reason, go to the place where the castle just rose out of the sky and there's now just a gigantic like chasm, and we have no idea if the castle is going to like fall back at any point. But you know, just say they don't care about this and there's no danger for some reason, because I kind of feel like there's going to be like monsters coming out of this pit. I just kind of feel like that's going to be a thing. But you know, just say none of that is the case and they decide now is the perfect time to rebuild Castletown. You still need a significant amount of time in between that decision and the start of the game if you want this to work. And does the game not start like before the castle rises, right? So where is this time where they would have to rebuild Castletown in the present? That's why I'm saying, like, I feel like only time travel would work if we want to get an explorable Castletown. Does that make sense? Or do you have a rebuttal for that?
Well, I don't think we can see Castletown clearly enough when the castle rises. We don't know if it's destroyed or not. Like, I'm looking here, and there's a lot of smoke. Like,
can you see in the initial trailer where they first showed the castle rising? Can you see Castletown in that shot?
Well, I'm
looking. You should be able to, right?
I'm looking at the shot where at the end of the second trailer. And it's not it's like somewhat in the air, but it's not like all the way up in the air. So it may not go to space, right? Like, I think we may just be jumping the gun here. Like, in the second trailer,
I feel like it's got to be higher than it was in the trailers, though.
It's not rising in the second trailer. It's just there with this big gas erupting from it, from the bottom.
Yeah, in the initial trailer, I can't really see Castletown either. Yeah. That is one thing about Breath of the Wild that I hope they kind of fix in the sequel, to be honest. Well, it's kind of a good thing and a bad thing because of how low spec the hardware Breath of the Wild runs on is. But you cannot see very well, like in the distance, a lot in this game. Anything at the distance is either like not rendered or barely rendered, or there's fog
You
obscuring
can't really
it,
see what's going on.
which, like,
truly.
I get it because they don't have enough power on, like, the Wii U to render. Like, they barely had enough power to render what they were doing with this game. It's a miracle it runs on the Wii U at all.
Yeah.
But even, like, Switch, like, with the initial way that game's built, like, with that engine built for the Wii U, like, not optimized for Switch.
I think the only way
understand.
Castle
You can't
Town
get
is
those kind of
actually
draw
explored
distances,
is
but,
through
like,
time shift still. Looking at the end of the shot from the end of the second trailer, like, it's just it's not, the castle is high up, but it's not like so high up that like there's a distance.
Looking
like
at the
it's
second trailer.
there's like purple malice erupting from the whole, like, you would be right next to the enemy base if you were in Castletown. Like, there would be this looming, it wouldn't just be a looming threat, it would be a threat still. So
yeah, there's just smoke pouring out of the chasm. That's what I.
it's
That's what I
only
kind of
like
figure there'd be
slightly
like
raised.
demons and monsters pouring out of there. Sounds like, you know, deep dark hole of doom.
It might
that
be
just
that
got
they raised the
uncovered,
castle
probably
just
has
enough that
monsters.
you can't glide there.
Yeah. See, the thing is, like, from the ground, it's as if the Sky Realm doesn't exist. It's like Skyward Sword. You cannot see it. So we have no clue where the sky area, like, meets up to this. Because I feel like if the sky area is anywhere near it, you'd be able to glide down.
Yeah.
Unless
there could
there's
also
some
be
sort of
trailer-
separate loading screen. I'm going to say it right now, and this maybe is disappointing. I have a huge feeling there's going to be a separate loading screen between the normal map, and I think they're going to treat it as a second map in the sky. Because we don't see anything loaded. Like, straight up, it's not loaded. It is not there. When you're on the ground, it does not exist. Unless it's just something for the trailers, it is not there. There's nothing. So, and when you're in the sky, like, looking down the ground, it's hard to tell if it's just because you're so far away, or if it's like when you're loaded into a Divine Beast, where it's actually, like, a separate version of the map that's much lower poly and stuff that you can't actually just glide back into. I feel like it's going to be like a Divine Beast situation where you can explore the sky all you want, but you want to go back to the ground, you're going to have to load. But I'm very curious how they're going to treat that, because otherwise, I feel like...
I think that'd be that would be a hard L, because I think the idea is, like, be fully open.
Yeah, but then, like, you can, if you're in the sky and you can just drop down on the ground, you can drop anywhere at, like, any time. And I guess that's not a huge issue with the way Breath of the Wild's made, but, like, unless you're supposed to be able to go fight Ganon at any time again, like, you should be able to get to the castle, right? Like, from the sky, no matter what.
My theory is that
unless
Malice
the
will
sky's
block
not
you.
as high up as
My
it
theory
seems.
is that Malice will simply block you. Like, if you try to go there, the Malice will simply erupt
Feel
down and
the
stop
Malice.
you. It'll be like a Malice wall, and you'll need to find a way to be
Yeah.
able to break through that, and it won't be able to fly through. Won't cut it. You'll need to be able to break through the Malice wall.
They could definitely do that. I'm
Like,
just
'cause
wondering
there's
why
Malice, like,
the game
erupting
is...
from it, like erupting now. Like, you could, there's no Malice actually blocking view of the castle necessarily, but it's also really easy for me to see Malice just kind of shooting out, like, almost like a volcano, like lava from a volcano, an active volcano, just to stop you. So I could see that. So I think that my opinion is that what's going to happen is they're not going to take it, handle it the exact same way. It's not going to be the same thing as Breath of the Wild 1, where you can go to the end at the very beginning of the game. I think you're going to have to build up to be able to go through there. And in order to do that, it may require, one, fixing the Master Sword, maybe getting other blessings. You're going to have to go to, like, a few different temples and dungeons and accomplish that. And then after that point, you can go to the castle.
Yeah. Man.
Another thing that kind of annoys me, though, is that we already explored the castle, right? So
Yeah.
I hope that the castle is different. Like, why should we explore the exact castle we had in Breath of the Wild? You know what I mean? Like, it's gotta be different. And, you know, thinking more
kind of the
on
same
that
thing about just the world in Breath of the Wild in
Right.
general.
like,
That's what I'm saying. Like, they gotta show us what's different. They gotta. Continue with your point.
yeah. My point
She's taking a big yawn.
Yeah, sorry. It's been a long day.
I feel ya.
It's just there's got to be a lot different. Like I would love like I would love to explore the world of Breath of the Wild, but I could just do that by playing Breath of the Wild. Would I love that for them to update it? Sure, but if it's a brand new game, I feel like it should be a brand new world. It's kind of an interesting thing because, like, what do you do with a sequel that takes place in the exact same time period and art style, you know, and area? Like, how do you? I don't think that's ever been done before. Can we think of something where that's been done before?
Yakuza. Yakuza series is like all set in the same map, isn't it? Like most of them are the same map.
And how did they handle the difference between games?
That's a good question because I don't play Yakuza. Honestly, I think they just put like new missions and story and just update the graphics and like some of the layout. I don't think it's gonna be how they treat Breath of the Wild, but that's the only other game I can really think of that has like the same map for
sequels. Like a pretty rare situation.
And I'm not. Yeah. The chat can correct me if I'm wrong about Yakuza. I'm pretty sure it has like the same map throughout a lot of the entries, but I've not played the games or very limited understanding of like what that series is about.
Yeah. It's tough. It's tough. But you know, again, getting back to the overall point of the topic here, I think that there's a need to talk about Zelda. Clearly, people are kind of losing hope. People are losing faith or what have you, losing excitement, hype. They need to talk about it. But I think the reason we haven't gotten a general direct yet is because they haven't been ready to talk about Zelda. And I think September is probably a good time to do that, provided it's coming out this March. Which, by the way, typically when Nintendo has a spring release date for something, it's March. Why? Because March is where they usually have a big release to come out to close the fiscal year. Some examples: Kirby and the Forgotten Land this year, Monster Hunter Rise the year before that, and then Animal Crossing New Horizons 2020. Breath of the Wild was a 2017 release. There's a history of big releases to close out the fiscal year.
It's also a history of much smaller releases in April and May, and hardly any. Well, I can't think of like what's the biggest game we've got in April and May in the last couple of years, right? Like
Mario Maker.
What? Mario Maker?
Well, came out
it's not on June.
That was a June release.
Yeah. Like, so we start getting big games again in June, which is like barely spring. So if you go for big games in spring, it's really only March. Yeah. Like, we got Splatoon back in when did that release? 2015? That was in May, but that was the Wii U era.
Yeah,
that was very late into May, and that was a multiplayer game. Like that they wanted to release like at the beginning of summer.
ARMS is June.
Yes, Splatoon 2 was July. Splatoon 3 was is August.
Yeah,
it was going to be July though.
We don't normally see games like Breath of the Wild come out this early in the year.
Not in April or May. It just doesn't happen. Like, it would March really
is the time, really.
Yeah, it's either March or they're like, unless they count June.
I mean, we could also just assume this is just a different circumstance.
Even so, like, why? Why make it into a different circumstance? They don't have to. There's absolutely no reason for them to. They're not under any pressure. Ready. Well, no, but like they can just wait. Like,
yeah,
they don't have to release the game.
I actually think the game is probably ready. I think the game is probably ready.
Like 100%.
Supposedly they already have voice acting done. So, you know. Yeah.
I'm 100% sure the game could have shipped this year if they wanted to. There's just like some things they wanted to polish up and fix up before the game releases. Otherwise, I don't think there's any way they would have said spring 2023. They would have just said 2023. Yeah.
Guys, in the chat,
it's coming the next year.
If you could put out your final points or questions, we'll try and get to a few before we close things up, but we are ending the discussion soon. So I think we're in agreement that there's kind of a need to talk about Zelda, especially if it's coming out March, specifically Breath of the Wild 2. But I don't think we've touched too much on Wind Waker or Twilight Princess HD, Brandon.
Right.
And
good point.
I think we touched on it a little bit, but not too much. You made the argument earlier that, you know, they could announce it in an early September direct if it comes out, and it comes out a few weeks later. I could see that. I honestly don't see the games coming out in October or November personally. I could see them being...
October has games.
Exactly. There's
It's
multiple.
like 3 or 4 games coming out.
There's a lot of games coming out. Nintendo can ignore third-party
October,
games. They do that all the time. That's fine. But when you have multiple Nintendo published games coming out in a month, that's where I'm a little unsure of it, right? So
in October we have Bayonetta 3
and Mario Rabbids coming out
Mario
with each
Rabbids.
other.
And is there another game? There might be another third party like smaller game coming out.
There's a lot. There's third-party stuff. I think maybe like there's the Nier Automata release. There's
I think that's
games.
October.
So
yeah,
yeah.
But September, other than
Splatoon 3 comes out early.
Which
September.
is coming out early.
So I could see a late September release, but they need to announce it soon in order to do that. Now, the interesting thing is that the Zelda games don't even have to be announced in a direct. They could be shadow dropped this week or shadow announced, whatever. They could be announced before this month is over.
Yeah, they're much smaller projects. They don't have to be.
Yeah. But also, I guess basically what I'm trying to suggest here is that if we don't get a September direct before the second week, before the third week, so if the second week goes by and there's no September direct, I don't believe the Zelda games are coming out this year. I think the chance has gone increasingly more minutes. Like what? Okay, well just play my hypothetical. Let's say we enter the third week of September, and there still is no direct. What do you think is happening?
In this third week of September,
maybe the direct happens in the third week of September.
They would have to be an October direct. Honestly, let's think about this in terms of like marketing, because I am of the belief that we will have the direct on either the 13th of September, which is the next Tuesday after Splatoon 3 releases, or it could be any time that week.
Isn't there like a history of like Nintendo Directs coming out like within a week of the Tokyo Game Show or something?
That I would have to check, but a week of that, either that day, the Tuesday, the 13th, or the 20th. It could also be like the 15th or the 22nd if they do Thursday. They usually do it on Tuesdays, so that's just what I'm predicting. But I do think if they do it either one of those 2 days, like they could announce a Zelda for for the end of September. I'm just thinking. So let me just point this out. If they don't do it in those times, when are they going to do a presentation?
Let me point this out. Tokyo Game Show last year was between September 30th and October 3rd, 2021, right? The September Direct occurred September 23rd, so about a week beforehand. Tokyo Game Show this year is between September 15th and September 18th. So conceivably...
Oh, wildly different.
I haven't looked up the other dates, but...
to be beforehand, it would have to be on the 13th.
It would have to be... Well, what I'm trying to get at here, Brandon, is that there seems to be a history. I want to double check. I've heard people talk about it. There seems to be a history that Nintendo Directs happen a week before the Tokyo Game Show.
I don't think they're going to do a direct the same week that Splatoon 3 has come out, because I don't think they need to mention the game under the direct. Just had the Splatoon 3 direct. I think they want that game to come out. Either do the direct the next week, or give it a whole other week and do it after.
I also think that it might just be a coincidence how there's a relation between the Nintendo Directs releasing the Tokyo Game Show, because why does that matter?
Nintendo doesn't even really, like, Sony's way bigger on the Tokyo Game Show than Nintendo is. Like, way bigger. Like, Nintendo does some stuff sometimes, but
you know, like, maybe it happens on the same day. So maybe September 15th, like on a Thursday, is when the Tokyo Game Show opens, or September 14th, the day before.
I feel like it's going to be the 13th. It could be the 14th as well.
Well, the 13th will be a Tuesday.
Right. The Tuesday, we usually get directs on like Tuesdays or Thursdays, right? Unless my memory is failing me.
Tuesdays is for usually like the E3
Tuesdays
directs.
or Thursdays. Either way, like, usually it's Tuesdays or Thursday for direct. I'm pretty sure, right? Like Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays. Either way,
that window.
Yeah, sure. I agree. That window. I don't think it's gonna be the same day. I don't think Nintendo wants to take away from the Tokyo Game Show or have the Tokyo Game Show take away from them in any way. There's no reason to put their own show on the same day as somebody else's show for when they could just do it 2 days before.
Tokyo Game Show is also not like one person's show; it's different companies. So
yeah, I know, but like, I don't know. Yeah, maybe Nintendo wants to steal the spotlight, but they're gonna be in it. They're gonna be in the show. I'm sure they're gonna have things to show off. Why have their own show on the same day that they're showing other stuff at another show, when they could have their own show 2 days before and then have those announcements be like, hey, you know this new game we just showed off? We're gonna be showing off again at the Tokyo Game Show 2 days from now.
Thing. Mario Rabbids Band 3 come out at the end of October, right? Like, conceivably, let's say they have a direct the next week, right? Maybe the Zelda games, if they're even coming, are released 2 weeks later in the first week of October. Like, is that... I don't think that's impossible. You know, all of these are possibilities, right? Like, this could all still happen, and Metro Prime could still come out in November. I think Advance was maybe a push until early next year.
I feel like I'm narrowing
to kind of help that lineup out the beginning of next year.
Your information on when the Tokyo Game Show is, mixed with when we know about Splatoon, mixed with everything we know about September and Directs, I feel like I know what's happening. I feel like it is going to be the 13th, because Nintendo is always at the Tokyo Game Show, at least a little bit, showing off something. And I have a feeling that they're going to show off something that they're going to want to talk about in a Direct, which means they need to have the Direct before the game show on the 15th. But they're not going to have the Direct before
Splatoon. They could announce
they don't want to take away from Splatoon.
They could announce it on the 13th, and it happens on the 14th, the Wednesday.
Either way, before the 15th, right? That's not the biggest point, right? Before the 15th.
Maybe.
I'm not the 13th or the 14th, it doesn't matter to me. Before the 15th is my main point here. And after the 9th, the day the Splatoon 3 comes out. Because they don't want to overshadow Splatoon with new announcements, right? They already got things going those weeks. You know, they got like a week before, like, what is it? This weekend is the test fire, right? Or the
this
test Splatfest even.
Yeah,
which is going to be exciting. I wish I had the hardware to stream gameplay of that.
You know,
but
and by the way, just to kind of
Discord
boost us a little bit here. When it comes to date speculation, we speculated that this is when we would have like a Splatoon event. You know, we were hoping it would be the whole weekend, but you know,
you were actually correct, because I was thinking they might do it a week before last weekend. But you were right; they wanted to give it a little bit more time.
Yeah,
I just thought they might want to have more time for the data, but
this is the weekend we thought it would happen. Or I know we debated it, but this was the.
I was on 1 or 2 weeks, but yes, it was 50-50 of me, but yes.
Yeah. So, you know, maybe we're right about the Direct 2. We'll see. Maybe not. Maybe so. I do kind of like that timing, though. I think it could work.
we got a super chat the 13th here. Or nothing.
Yeah,
that's what I'll leave it on. The 13th or nothing. Just let that. Think about that, chat. We'll
14th.
Get back to it.
14th. Anyway, I got a super chat here from Taker610 for $2. Thank you very much, Taker. Taker says, big Breath of the Wild 2 blowout. It will happen, guys. It will. Let's believe. Let's hope. But if it doesn't happen, don't.
I will cry.
Temper
and
expectations.
I will get over it.
Play Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Splatoon, and then just call it a day. Yeah, I think that I think that it makes sense for Zelda to get a push in a September Direct. I think we may be coming to that time. So
we may not know the name or the release date, but I feel like we're gonna know a lot more.
I think we're getting there. But I just want to go through a couple chats here before we call things a night for now. Jesse, thank you, Andres, for your coverage on gaming stuff. I watch you almost every day. Awesome. I'm glad that you watched the channel. Thank you for enjoying it. I appreciate that. Having Hope 5. It's hard to believe anything the way Nintendo is. They are so hard to follow and predict sometimes, right?
Yeah. And other times they're dead easy.
Yeah, sometimes, right?
Quite a coin.
Yeah, Vincent
like
here
September
said,
Directs.
Imagine if there's an ancient divine beast, but maybe not a divine beast. More like a divine structure shaped like an arrow, but it's actually an ancient rocket ship. And then you go in there and you're shot up into space, and you have to fight Space Ganon riding on his space dragon.
Man.
As you're hurtling over to the sun. and then as the fight ends, you guys get incinerated, and you think that, and the game lets you believe that Link dies, but he gets transferred over with some sort of like divine fairy spirit, and he's back on Earth.
I don't know why I'm imagining Ganondorf as this like He-Man figure. Doesn't He-Man ride on like a dragon or something? Like, doesn't he have like this really cool flying steed? I haven't seen that show. That's like way before my time. I was like barely into it. Yeah. But I don't know why I had the picture of He-Man just like fighting Link in space. great idea until the space thing. I just think it's too like I don't think there's a really great way for that to work in gameplay and make sense. I mean, they could just have like one map in space that you load into and you do like a little mini dungeon in space. That could be cool. You know, it's not like they haven't done dungeons that are like outside of the normal map or reality even or time.
I mean, it would mostly
that the game exists
it would
in.
just be a background, really. So
Yeah, it could be like I don't know. I feel like it's not any crazier than Link going back in time in Twilight Princess to the old Ocarina Temple and like completely other dimension.
Not saying that's what's happening, but I don't think that's like out of the realm of possibility.
I do think, they wanted a lot of space stuff to be in the original Breath of the Wild. There's a lot of concepts.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if they have some space stuff. I'm not saying that Breath of the Wild 2 is going to be focused on space, but, there could be some hints and lore elements about space and spaceships and aliens.
It's like kind of in space. Like
Nintendo has Zelda's always had technology in its thing. It's been medieval, but there's always been technology. So why not?
You know what I love the idea of? I love the idea of maybe what if the next Zelda doesn't take place in Hyrule? It takes place on another planet.
That'd be wild. I just wonder how they would make that actually interesting other than just the concept itself, because like on paper that sounds cool, but how do they actually make that any more interesting than just putting it in a different part of the same planet?
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
I think by going on a different planet, that gives them license to come up with entirely different structures, entirely different like environments, and just go super alien exotic.
Okay, yeah, they could go like really alien with the environments. Then.
Think very Xenoblade or Pandora, like Avatar, like they could go to those lengths or beyond.
I do feel like there is a specific. Right, because like Zelda has technology, right? There's also always this medieval, like very humanness to everything. Like that's always been a big part of Zelda. Like Hylians are pretty much like
they can
humans.
Still be
like
humanoid, right? They can still be that. Like it doesn't have to be
right. I'm just wondering if it's
like
going
red
to
Martians.
Right, but I wonder if it's gonna like completely take away from like the overall image of what they see as what Zelda is.
Well, okay, hear me out, right, Brandon? What if there's another Zelda game that's actually kind of like a far-off sequel from Breath of the Wild? Because we're talking about all these space elements. What if the Sheikah are actually ancient aliens, right? As it's actually sort of hinted at in the game that they're ancient aliens.
Right.
And so what if the Sheikah are an alien race?
I think the Zonai are more likely to be aliens, to be honest.
The Sheikah are the ones that control this weird, like, spacey alien technology. But just hear me out, okay?
Yeah.
What if the next game is about where the Sheikah come from, right? And the Sheikah come from a different planet, like an entirely different planet. And in there, most of the people have white hair and red eyes. So they're like Hylians, but there's that subtle difference there. And then there may be, and that's just kind of how the people look. But it's an entirely different alien world. And the legend still takes place there. There's a whole other evil, and there's still like a link in that realm.
There is possibilities. I feel like this is very much in the terms of something that they would want to do a spin-off of. Could be something that Monolith Soft is concepting. We know they have that spin-off that looks very Zelda-y. Could be perfect for exploring these kind of crazy,
I'm just saying, at some point or another, I think they're going to want to go away from Hyrule. They're going to need something new, Like, I know whenever they do Zelda, they basically just go to a different time and do a different art style. And that's how they kind of get away from always being in Hyrule. But in other ways to do what my idea, just go to a different place. It could be a different continent. It could just also be a different planet.
I mean, they've done continents before. I mean, like Spirit Tracks and stuff. That was like a whole new area.
Yeah.
Majora's Mask, you have Termina. Termina is very much like the anti-Hyrule, though. It's like very similar, but also like almost the exact opposite in a lot of ways. I mean, I do think there's definitely potential for this kind of concept. I think, though, I don't think they want to completely pull away from. I think this the Sheikah thing. I think that's perfect, actually, because I was gonna say they don't want to pull away from the initial lore that Zelda already has, But if they are on the planet where the Sheikah come from,
Well,
then they have a lot of opportunities to pull that straight into the plot and make it still feel like Zelda.
It could make more sense. Think of it like this. So what if the reason there's the Sheikah always protects Zelda is because initially from their own home world, there was a version of Zelda, but she was a Sheikah princess, right? So there's already like ingrained in their culture and their maybe in their genetics this the idea to protect the princess. But also, there's always been that historic hero that they've also been meant to support and train. And so, this spirit of the hero transcends even like Hyrule itself. It goes beyond that, you know? It could speak to an even deeper history. Like, what if the Sheikah, you know, they brought this over to Hyrule, but maybe there's an entirely different. Like, this could be in the past. It doesn't have to be in the future. It could be before the events of even Skyward Sword. It could be maybe the explanation of why the Sheikah leave the planet, and they go and
there's
they become
a ton of stuff before Skyward Sword. Like people say, Skyward Sword is the beginning of the timeline. There's so much that happens clearly before Skyward Sword that they could touch on.
So what if you play this game and you realize it's just a prequel to Skyward Sword? You know, so there's a lot of potential there.
Bring this back to Breath of the Wild 2. I kind of feel like they might explore a lot more about like what the Sheikah is up, what's up with them, because I do think there's going to be a focus on the Zonai as well. We've seen some hints of Zonai architecture. Obviously, we've seen that green hand seems kind of Zonai-y. We don't know if that's actually Zonai, but like there's a lot of theories about the Zonai. But I do think we could see some more stuff about the Sheikah. We know that the Sheikah protects Zelda, and they're kind of like the Triforce. That's like it's made by the gods, right? And it has the power of, like, the gods themselves, essentially. And the Sheikah, they protect Zelda, which holds a peace. And ultimately, they also have a role in protecting the Triforce, just by kind of proxy. Are they more divine beings than we may have thought? Is the Sky Realm going to be a hint of something where the Sheikah came from?
Maybe.
Are we going to get hints of where the freaking Triforce itself came from? Obviously, in Ocarina of Time, we see the three gods come together. They form the Triforce.
What if you explore the actual realm of the gods? What if that's like a whole civilization?
Yeah.
That's like a cool idea. Like there's honestly tons of directions they could go. There's so much potential here. But I do want to close things out, so I just want to reference a couple things said, and then we'll call it a night. I don't know if you know, I've been yawning. I've been yawning a lot. Okay, let's see here. Andrew Coda asks, do you think Ganondorf is capable to warp Link and Zelda to Dark World? Yeah. I think Ganondorf could send us down, send it into another realm, for sure.
Yeah.
That may be kind of what happens to them. Maybe not like straight through a portal, but Zelda falls down a hole. We don't know where that leads to, and Link finds himself in the sky. So, you know, that may kind of already happen in the game. So just take that into consideration. Maybe. Let's see here. Vincent said, the water drop mechanic could work as a way to counter the source of malice, like it's purifying the muck of Hyrule. Yeah, there could be some purification things that you need to do or learn how to do or improve on. I guess it's something like that.
Interesting. We don't ever see that in the trailer, but we don't see a lot of things in the trailer. I'm wondering how that power specifically, because I do think that there could be a big concept of like clearing out the malice finally, because like you don't do that in the original Breath of the Wild. You just kind of like step over and ignore it. There could be like a big cleanup part of Breath of the Wild 2. Like that could definitely be a part of it. I'm just wondering how this power specifically would do that, because you seem to need to like move through things and get to another side. I'm wondering how they would like make that work. Like you would have to go in the ground in a specific way, the where you clip through the malice and then get rid of it. I just feel like it's not going to be that power
based
specifically.
Off the patents in terms of jumping, like it's designed so you kind of jump straight through to the top of wherever you hit from underside. So I don't know. I mean, mouse might get in the way.
We don't know if you can even go from like top to bottom either, because I feel like maybe you can, but like not everywhere, obviously, because there's no bottom everywhere. So I don't know that power specifically. I don't think it's going to be used for that, but I do like the concept of cleaning up malice around Hyrule, and there definitely could be something to that concept.
Yeah. Let's see here, Joycey J. A lot of the castle is blocked off. Maybe we can get through now. Just guessing. You know, thinking on it, what I kind of envision could happen is that throughout the course of the game, there's going to be an implication that the castle is being reworked. So when we finally get into the castle, it's outside it might look somewhat the same, but on the inside we're going to come in and we're going to realize, oh man, this is like entirely different.
So we have
Ganondorf now. Castle. Yeah, he may just change the castle.
He didn't need to change it in Breath of the Wild because he's just like a smoky,
he wasn't in it.
Form.
Yeah.
But, in Ocarina of Time, he sure changes the castle up a lot.
Yeah.
So, wouldn't be too surprised if it's actually, like, built around, like, this is Ganondorf's castle now. This ain't Hyrule Castle anymore.
So it's just changed. It's fixed up, maybe, right? Because a lot of it was broken. It's, like, renovated. It's renovated. That's what he's going to do. Ganondorf is going to renovate the castle, but it's going to be renovated to the aesthetic that appeals to Ganondorf. And then it's going to feel like a fresh, new environment to explore. I think that's how they do it.
Sick video vlog on YouTube is $1 million Hyrule Castle renovation.
That's gonna be funny. That'd be really funny, especially if it's still like in zombie form.
Nintendo made something like that.
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
Somebody get on that. Some YouTuber with talent, get on concepting that because that's a funny idea.
Yeah.
But dude, like. I don't know. We just need to see this game. We gotta see it. And there's this one final point I want to make before we end the podcast. It's just the last thing I want to talk about. Is, and I hinted about this earlier. This is the thing that I left them to think about. Is it the 13th, the 14th, or never? Like, is it that week or never? Because I feel like it's definitely feels like it's September or never. For the year. I don't think they're going to do something in October. They have so many big releases they don't want to overshadow. November, they got Pokemon. Like, what are they going to do it in December? They don't do big directs in December. Well, that's not going to happen.
I mean, to your point, September is a fairly slow month, save for Splatoon 3.
Like, after Splatoon 3 comes out, there's weeks of nothing.
I mean, I could still see early October, but that's like the latest, the absolute latest.
Wait, I think we even have third-party games coming out then. Like, when does Nier Automata drop? Like, that's a thing. Like, you don't. I don't think they're gonna want to make a big mention of it again.
I think they could actually talk about in the direct again. So I don't know if that's.
Yeah, they could. They could. I don't know. Because like, but the big games like that we want to come out for this year. Like, is there not?
By the way,
I feel like if they do something October,
October 6th, by the way.
So 6th, yeah, that's early. If there's gonna be any other games coming out, I feel like they have to announce in September. Like, maybe the first week of October, but I feel like even like early September, like even the 13th is kind of cutting it for some of these projects. Like Prime Remake, if it's a big as a remake as we think it is, if they're really just focusing on the first game and really making that like Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition or higher quality, I'm kind of expecting higher at this point if they're just doing the first game because it's a smaller project. I feel like what are they gonna announce in October and release it the next month?
No, it comes out.
I feel like even early September is early.
And Pokemon Scarlet Violet comes out November 18th, so like you either release it on November 11th or November 25th. I think it would probably come out.
I feel like you gotta talk about that now.
Yeah, or it's a December release. So.
I don't know, guys. I don't want to hype anybody up too much, and I'm not saying I'm expecting even a general direct. Like, it could be just a mini, but like I'm not expecting everything to be shown and everything to be the best direct ever. Because even though we've been waiting, like a lot of people that get this false idea that just because you've been waiting for things means that when you finally get it, it's got to be even better than it initially would have been. It's not necessarily true. Sometimes you just get the same amount of content later. Like, them delaying stuff doesn't necessarily mean that when that game finally comes out, all those other games that would have come out in those time don't get delayed. Like, they're gonna delay things further. Like, I don't think there's a world where they just, like, pile on things just because there haven't been announcements. But anyways, point is, I'm very confident there's going to be a direct on the 13th or 14th. I'm going to say I'm 80% confident. I don't know what type of direct this will be.
Yeah.
But I think there will be. I'm calling it right now. My prediction, 13th of September. We're going to get it. I'm hoping a general direct.
14th.
That's what I'll predict. You're predicting 14th?
Yeah.
Why are you so adamant on Wednesday? I feel like Tuesday is more often the case.
I just
Are you just playing devil's advocate?
No, I actually don't agree.
Okay.
I think
You know, I
Tuesday
could be
we
wrong.
see
My memory's not very
announcements,
good.
but I don't think we see actual directs, not counting E3 directs. Like if we actually see directs, they don't usually happen on Tuesdays. They happen on
I'd
Wednesdays
have
or
to
Thursdays.
check the data on that, but it's not enough of an importance for me to do that right now. So I
Yeah.
will believe you. But I'm still
I
predicting the 13th.
think it could get
Just
announced on
because.
13th.
Let's
Yeah.
see.
We'll see, right? Although I think the partner showcase was a Tuesday, so.
Mhm.
But that was a partner showcase, which was.
Right.
We didn't even live. It wasn't even live.
It was the
streamed.
closest thing to a general direct that we had.
It wasn't live streamed either.
It's the only
So
game
you know, I mean,
specific.
there's some nuance there, but I think this would be like more of a major thing, and it would probably be announced.
Sound off in the comments. What do you think? 13th, 14th, any other day? Let us know.
Yeah, I feel like Mr. Aztec Gamer's comment here kind of summarizes our feelings, right? And they said, we don't know anything about Nintendo's plans post Pokemon, though, so gotta get a direct soon. No, kind of, yeah. Like we don't know what goes beyond Pokemon, so there needs to be they need to talk about that stuff at some point. So I think there could be a September direct, and if Breath of the Wild 2 is truly slated for March, which as Brandon and I discussed earlier, like it'd be weird if it didn't come out in March, assuming it's not delayed beyond like until like the holidays. They probably should talk about this September as well. So that's kind of our thinking on it. We will see, hopefully soon. But yeah, let us know what you guys think. Leave a like, subscribe, and take care. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.